Hey guys, tonight, we're going to journey back to a distant age, long before cities shimmered with electric light, before written language could trap thoughts forever, and certainly before anyone thought to invent indoor plumbing. Imagine a world that is raw, untamed, and completely indifferent to your survival. You're walking across the brittle, cracking ice of Ice Age Europe, each step crunching like shattered glass beneath your feet. This is Neanderthal land, where survival is not for the weak, so, before we venture deeper into this wild terrain, if you feel this story is worth a few minutes of your life, please hit like and subscribe. It gives me the motivation to dig deeper into these forgotten chapters of history. And if you're listening from a warm room or a log cabin in the dead of winter, leave your location and time in the comments. I always want to know who I'm telling stories to, and where they are. Now, dim the lights around you. You might even switch on a fan to create a soft, steady hum. Relax, but not too much. Because where we're heading, comfort is a luxury no one could afford. Every single step you take is a risk. The landscape may look still, but danger is always just out of sight. There might be a mammoth herd thundering in your direction from the eastern hills, their footfalls shaking the earth before you even see them. Or perhaps a saber-toothed cat is crouched behind that nearby boulder, its golden eyes watching you with idle hunger. Your odds of survival in this place are laughably slim, and what stands between you and an early, gruesome end? A man. Or something close to one. A brawny, fur-covered figure named Ugg, whose only form of communication is an elaborate symphony of eyebrow twitches. He once punched a woolly rhinoceros square in the face simply because it stared at him a second too long. He's not your friend exactly, but he hasn't left you to die yet, which is the closest thing to affection you're going to get out here. The Neanderthals did not rule this place with laws, flags, or councils of any kind. They endured it, dominated it, and shaped themselves to fit its harsh rhythms. Not through clever inventions or lofty ideals, but through sheer, magnificent weirdness. You, on the other hand, probably wouldn't last past your first hour. Your toes would go numb, your lungs would burn, and your hands, soft, pink, and tragically unused to anything more dangerous than a keyboard, wouldn't know where to begin when faced with a hunk of unshaped flint and the task of turning it into a hunting tool. You open your eyes to find yourself lying on a cave floor that feels like the heart of a glacier. Not the casual chill of your grandma's overly air-conditioned guest room, but the deep, bone-grinding cold of a place where warmth has never truly lived. The stone beneath you is rough and unforgiving. Water drips steadily from the jagged ceiling above, each drop echoing through the hollow space like a tiny countdown. The air reeks of something ancient: sweat, smoke, damp earth, and the unmistakable tang of roasted elk mixed with the scent of people who have never heard of soap. Outside, the wind screams across the ridges of the Carpathian Mountains, tearing through the trees like a predator. This is Europe as it existed roughly 60,000 years ago, and it is utterly relentless. Vast pine forests stretch across the frozen landscape like bristling green armor. Herds of massive steppe bison lumber across open plains, their hooves crushing ice with terrifying ease. The very ground beneath you crackles with frost so sharp it could slice through bare skin. Finding shelter is a stroke of luck. Finding shelter that isn't already home to something larger, hungrier, and more territorial than you. That's nothing short of a miracle. Neanderthals didn't just scrape by here. They flourished. Let that settle in your mind. They didn't treat this landscape as a temporary stop or an unfortunate circumstance. This was their domain. They endured year after year, through endless winters, biting winds, and sudden thaws. They didn't adapt in the way we think of adaptation, they embodied it. The same way a shark is made for the ocean or a raccoon is made for garbage theft, the Neanderthals were made for survival, and here's the kicker: they weren't alone. Other human species were just beginning their tentative steps out of Africa, exploring new terrain with wide eyes and fragile bones. Your kind, Homo sapiens, were only beginning to arrive in this frozen wilderness. But in this particular corner of the continent, it's still Neanderthal territory. Their land. Their rules, and it is brutal. But it is also stunning. To your left, a woolly rhinoceros lumbers through snowbanks that tower over your head. Its horn glistens like an icicle. To your right, a short-faced bear, an enormous, snorting beast with shoulders like tree trunks, grunts from the edge of the trees. If luck is on your side, you'll stumble across a ring of stones surrounding a fire pit, still faintly warm from the night before. Mammoth bones lie scattered around it, their surfaces marked by careful cuts and long use. Flint tools gleam in the firelight like prehistoric silverware. The Neanderthals you meet don't smile at you. This isn't because they're unfriendly. It's because their faces simply don't work that way. Their brows are heavy, their noses wide, their mouths set in permanent seriousness. They watch you with something between curiosity and quiet disdain. You're soft. You're unscarred. You haven't yet proven yourself by dragging half a reindeer up a snowy hill while bleeding from a boar wound. They know you're weak, and yet, they allow you to walk behind them. You trail along as they move through the woods. They gather branches, flint shards, and fistfuls of dry grass with slow, practiced movements. No one rushes, but no one dawdles either. Every action has purpose. One of them, a giant of a man wrapped in a mosaic of stitched-together hides, squats near the fire pit and grinds red ochre into powder between two flat stones. You don't know why he's doing it, but you can feel that it matters. These aren't clumsy, brainless cavemen. They are deliberate. Thoughtful. You see it in their silent communication, nods, hand signs, flicks of the eyes. You see it in the way they glance at the sky, as though the wind might carry an answer. Their world is brutal. But their minds are tuned to its frequency. They belong here in a way you never could. Experts still debate how the Neanderthals viewed this land. Did they see it as home? As an adversary? Did they rise each day with grim determination, drawing on every strange advantage evolution had granted them? Or did they never question it at all, living and dying in cycles of cold, hunt, shelter, repeat? Regardless, it's hard not to admire them. One moment, they are hauling stones heavier than you with a grunt and a nod. The next, they are crouched by a stream, gently rinsing fire-hardened spear tips as if preparing for some sacred task. There's a rhythm to it all. A rough, unsentimental rhythm. But one that hums with life. At one point, you gesture, awkwardly and hopefully, for something warm to wear. One of them eyes you and tosses over a fur scrap that smells like a hyena's armpit. You accept it like a sacred gift and drape it across your shoulders. The stink is overwhelming, but the warmth is real. Together, you hike through sleet and mist. You cross streams edged with jagged ice. You scramble up hills slick with snowmelt. Eventually, you reach a clearing where enormous footprints, each the size of a bathtub, crater the snow. A hunting ground. No one speaks, but the mood sharpens. It's not cozy here. It's not magical. But it is hauntingly peaceful. You walk among giants. Not because of their height, they barely reach your chest, but because of their presence. Their strength. Their utter confidence in a world that would shred most modern humans in seconds. They are short, yes. 5'5", give or take. But they are dense. Compact. Built like living trees that somehow sprouted legs and learned how to use tools. When night falls again, you return to a shallow cave. Flames flicker and dance across the walls, painting shadows that grow and stretch like ghosts. Someone lets out a low, rumbling sound. It could be a song, or a warning, or both. Bones crack as they're split open for marrow. Fat sizzles as it drips onto glowing embers. The only other sound is the soft, ever-present hush of survival itself. You curl near the fire, drawing the stinking fur tighter around your body. You don't know if the warmth comes from the flames or from the strange security of being near these ancient people. They do not welcome you. They do not need you. But they tolerate your presence, and just before your eyes slide shut, one thought lodges in your mind: you're not observing history from the outside. You are a part of it. And the Ice Age hasn't even warmed up yet. Morning arrives without ceremony. No soft glow creeping over the horizon, no golden shafts of sunlight, no chorus of birdsong welcoming a new day. Instead, it slips into the cave like a sluggish fog, casting everything in a dull gray haze that clings to your skin and bones alike. There's no dew-kissed anything, no fresh scent of dawn. Just the ceaseless groan of a wind that never seems to rest, grinding against the mountains like two ancient glaciers muttering threats through clenched teeth. You stir beneath the damp weight of your borrowed hyena hide blanket. Stretching seems like a good idea, but your body immediately files a formal complaint. Every joint aches as if someone spent the night hammering your skeleton into the stone floor. Your spine, so accustomed to mattresses and office chairs, has decided it will never forgive you for last night's poor decisions. The rocks underneath feel like the least supportive mattress ever made, scattered with old bones and pebbles that have left precise imprints in your skin. Meanwhile, the Neanderthals are already wide awake, already moving. There's no yawning, no groggy fumbling for coffee, no morning scroll through anything. One of them, a female with forearms thick enough to be mistaken for young tree trunks, bends down and casually rolls a boulder aside as if it were nothing more than an oversized loaf of bread. Beneath it lies a cache of dried meat, preserved and hidden with methodical care. Another Neanderthal is using his teeth, not tools, but teeth, to tear long, stringy sinews from a stretched animal hide with the same casual focus you might use to peel a sticker off a banana, and it starts to dawn on you, slowly, uncomfortably, that these people aren't just managing to scrape by out here in this frozen wasteland. They are thriving in it. They are perfectly, terrifyingly adapted to it in ways your body could never hope to replicate. You glance around at their physiques, trying not to stare but unable to look away. It isn't admiration exactly. It's closer to bewildered awe. You're attempting to process how something this squat and solid could possibly walk on two legs and still move with such fluidity. Their bodies are dense with purpose. Every inch of them seems engineered for survival. If biology were a sport, these people would be Olympic champions in the category of enduring the apocalypse. Start with their skulls. The heavy brow ridges that give them a perpetually intense expression. Those aren't cosmetic. Those bony ridges may have helped absorb the mechanical stress of chewing meat so tough it would give your jaw a cramp just thinking about it. Their noses are wide, so wide that you almost do a double take, but not without reason. That broad nasal passage may have helped warm and moisten the icy air before it reached their lungs, making each breath more bearable in sub-zero temperatures. Think of them as natural-born humidifiers, built for deep breaths in an environment that punishes every inhale, but the most astonishing part is the rest of the package. You watch as a male Neanderthal drags the femur of a mammoth, something roughly the size of a small canoe, across the snow. He does it with one hand. There's no strain on his face, no dramatic huffing and puffing. His chest is massive. Not just wide across the shoulders, but deep through the ribcage, like someone stuffed a barrel into his torso and called it lungs. That kind of thoracic volume meant more space for oxygen, more stamina, more resistance to the cold. It wasn't just impressive, it was necessary. And then there are the arms. Shorter than yours, yes, but thick and heavy, like organic versions of industrial machinery. They look like they could swing a stone hammer with the force of a wrecking ball, and probably have. These aren't limbs made for touchscreens or spreadsheets. They are tools, purposeful, durable, blunt. They are designed for power, for control, for reshaping the world with brute efficiency. Watching them manipulate tools, prepare for the hunt, or even just haul wood makes you feel like you're made of uncooked pasta by comparison. Their legs follow the same blueprint, compact and extraordinarily strong. Though shorter than your own, their legs give off the sense that they could launch a person from a snowdrift like a catapult. Studies have suggested that Neanderthals may have possessed a higher proportion of fast-twitch muscle fibers, giving them explosive power for brief, intense movements. Picture someone built like a rugby player, covered in bear pelts, and seemingly carved from granite. Now picture trying to keep up with that person in the snow. You attempt it anyway. For 3 minutes, you try to match their pace. 3 whole minutes. You pant like a malfunctioning furnace while they glide over the terrain with silent efficiency. Each footstep is a choice, a conservation of energy, a product of practice and instinct. You, in contrast, radiate warmth like a lost radiator, hemorrhaging calories and heat with every movement. Every breath. Your breath fogs the air in frantic bursts while theirs remains steady, controlled. At one point, a Neanderthal lifts a block of packed snow and presses it against his arm. No reaction. No grimace, no complaint, no flicker of discomfort. Just cold discipline. Another cracks a thick tree branch in half over her forearms like it's made of chalk. You glance down at your own limbs and feel something not unlike shame. They're not useless exactly, but they suddenly seem ornamental. There's still ongoing debate among scholars about the limits of Neanderthal strength. Some suggest the differences were minor, arguing with computer models and muscle reconstructions. Others say these people could snap your sternum in half without meaning to. You find yourself sympathizing with the latter. Whatever the truth, you have no plans to challenge them to an arm wrestling match anytime soon. Their walk is different, too. Not quite upright, not the smooth, straight posture you're used to seeing in humans. It leans forward slightly, as though they're constantly braced against invisible resistance. Some scientists think they carried their weight differently, favoring sudden, powerful movements over long-distance travel. It's the difference between a sprinter and a marathoner, except the sprinter has been training at the bottom of a frozen ravine and eating nothing but elk for 20 years, but what truly rewrites your assumptions are their hands. At first glance, they just look crude. Thick fingers. Knobby knuckles. Palms rough enough to sand wood. Scars crisscross every visible surface. Yet when you watch them work, your perception shifts. One young Neanderthal picks up a flint flake, tilts it carefully under the light, and uses it to carve a groove into a piece of bone. There's precision in his movements. A kind of grace. It's the same grace a sculptor might show while chiseling stone. Only his chisel is prehistoric and his subject is survival. Despite the old stereotypes, Neanderthals had extraordinary manual dexterity. Their hands were strong, yes, but capable of delicate tasks. Their thumbs suggest a powerful grip, both for heavy lifting and for precise manipulation. 1 minute they're smashing open bones to get to the marrow, the next they're threading strands of sinew through a needle crafted from reindeer rib. Watching it is like seeing a nightclub bouncer gently restoring a violin. They even appear to have had handedness, some were right-handed, others left-handed. At first glance, this seems trivial, but the implications are massive. Handedness suggests lateralized brain function, just like your own. That means they may have shared more cognitive wiring with you than you ever expected. Maybe they doodled on cave walls when bored. Maybe they invented games. Maybe they shared jokes that only made sense if your skull came with extra forehead. You sit down on a rock while they prepare for the day's hunt. Your legs are sore, your lungs are still trying to catch up, and your fingers feel like they might snap off. One Neanderthal approaches and shows you how to affix a stone spearhead to a shaft. He uses sinew, resin, and a technique honed by generations of necessity. The finished weapon is solid. He smacks it against a nearby tree with a force that makes you flinch. The spear doesn't even wobble. You thank him. He responds with a sound somewhere between a grunt and a low cough. It could mean anything. Maybe you're welcome. Maybe stay out of my way. They begin marking their bodies with black and red pigments. The meaning is unclear. It could be camouflage to break up their silhouettes in the snow. Or perhaps it's symbolic, a ritual, a tradition, a link to something deeper. Scholars argue endlessly about the purpose of these markings. Were they for hunting? For ceremony? For memory? No one knows for sure. But the streaks on their skin feel deliberate, meaningful, personal. One thing becomes painfully clear: these people lived in total harmony with their environment and with the bodies they were born into. Their strength wasn't for display. It wasn't sculpted in gyms or counted in reps, it was necessary, earned, and completely integrated with the life they led. Each scar spoke of a victory. Each callus was proof of persistence. You begin to understand something quiet and humbling: you are not stronger than them, you are not smarter in any way that this world respects, you are only softer, warmer, and less hairy, and if the climate shifted again, if the world were to freeze tomorrow, if the glaciers returned without warning, you would not last beyond a single week. At best. You wake slowly, drawn out of sleep by the soft, rhythmic hiss of falling snow and the less soothing, more abrasive sound of someone scraping flesh from a hide using a sharpened stone flake. That sharp, wet sound carves through the morning air like a blade through frozen meat. The Neanderthals are already up, already moving with their usual quiet efficiency, shaking off sleep without complaint. Their mornings begin before the light and without ceremony, slipping into motion like animals born to chase the horizon. You push yourself upright, wincing as your muscles protest and your borrowed hide shifts against your skin with a damp, sour weight. You shuffle toward the cave entrance and peer outside, bracing yourself as the icy air slams against your face with the force of a slap. It's not the kind of cold that makes you shiver. It's the kind of cold that goes deeper than skin, the kind that feels personal. As if the very air is trying to erase your bones from the inside out, like you're something it never agreed to let live here. But the Neanderthals, they don't flinch. Not once. No mittens, no boots, no thermal lining. Just layered fur wrappings tied in place with cords of sinew, soot-smeared cheeks hardened by exposure, and those same stoic, unreadable faces, faces that belong to people who have never experienced central heating and wouldn't miss it if they had. At the edge of the clearing, one of them crouches low, poking at the snow with a stick as if reading a hidden message. You follow his gaze and see faint tracks curving toward the woods. Something passed by during the night. Possibly a predator. Possibly prey. Either way, it was something worth following. Something worth risking the cold for. Something that might turn into meat, marrow, or fur. And even before the hunt begins, before they rise to pursue it, you find yourself amazed all over again that they are not dead. That they are still here. Breathing. Moving. Alive. It feels like a violation of nature's rules. Ice Age Europe wasn't just chilly, it was unforgiving. Long stretches of time passed in complete winter, with temperatures so low they made steel brittle. Days were short and cloud-covered. Nights were endless and cruel. And yet these people weren't buried under it. They were walking through it. They weren't struggling. They were thriving. Historians still debate exactly how they managed this feat of survival. You'd expect them to freeze solid in their sleep, curled up in shallow caves while their extremities turned into little icy stubs. But that never happened. Instead, they adapted, and they did it in ways that make your expensive outdoor gear seem like decorative napkins taped to your skin. Start with the fundamentals. Their bodies were furnaces. Walking, breathing, heat-retaining machines. Thick necks. Broad, deep chests. Stocky limbs with minimal surface area. These weren't quirks. They were survival features, shaped by evolutionary necessity. According to Bergman's and Allen's rules of biology, animals in colder climates tend to have more compact shapes to conserve heat. Neanderthals fit that model perfectly. Their bodies were not built for style. They were built to trap warmth and never let it go, and then there was the hair. You don't know what kind of shaggy masterpieces they may have worn on their heads, matted braids, tangled waves, maybe even accidental mohawks, but some DNA evidence suggests a surprising range of hair types and colors. Some populations may have had pale skin. Some possibly had red hair. These genetic adaptations weren't just aesthetic, they offered advantages in absorbing scarce sunlight in the far northern latitudes. Their shelters offered even more proof of their ingenuity. You follow a small group as they make their way toward a pine grove where a half-finished shelter waits. It's crude by modern standards, but undeniably clever. Massive mammoth bones form a curved frame, lashed together at the joints with cords of hide. Between them, tan skins have been stretched tight, stitched and pinned into place. In the center, a pit lined with stones sits ready for fire. This isn't a home in the cozy sense. It's not meant to welcome. It's meant to shield, to hold, to block the wind and reflect the heat. And for that purpose, it works. Archaeologists have found traces of similar dwellings, bone and hide structures anchored into the ground. Angled against prevailing winds, sometimes with carefully placed stone circles to retain warmth. Some may have even used heated rocks to raise the temperature within the shelter. It wasn't luxury. But it was engineering in its rawest form. And in a world like this, it counted for everything. You can't help noticing how obsessed they are with fire. Not casually attentive. Not merely grateful. Obsessed. They feed it constantly, guard it without rest, and treat every ember as if it were the last one on earth. Because in their world, it might be. If the fire dies, they die. It is not just a tool. It is the line between life and death. You watch a young male carefully cradle a smoldering stick wrapped in bark and moss. He walks for miles with it, eyes never leaving the tiny ember. He protects it like a mother protects a child. And when the snow thickens, they cluster around the flames. Not for companionship. For insulation. Their warmth merges into a single, shared heat source, a survival engine made of fur, flesh, and instinct. At night, they prepare sleeping areas with care. Furs and hides are piled together with dry grasses, forming thick nests beside the fire. You are permitted a spot, on the edge, but still close enough to absorb a little warmth. You curl into the space, folding yourself in tight, becoming a lumpy, shivering burrito of borrowed skins. You listen to the soft crackle of flames, the quiet snuffling breaths of the others, and wonder how many of your toes will still have feeling in the morning. The child stirs in their sleep. A small body rolls over, one chubby hand flopping against a fur. The child mumbles something, just a sound, a syllable, but the tone is oddly familiar. There is a rhythm to it. A cadence. Something recognizably human, and that is what begins to unravel you. Not their strength. Not their resilience. But their normalcy. These people are not monsters. They are not strange creatures from a lost age. They are people. Smaller. Tougher. Less expressive. But people nonetheless. Their world is cruel, but their lives still hold flickers of comfort, of softness, of familiarity. Some researchers believe they may have gone beyond simple hide wrapping. There's speculation, based on tool marks, bone needles, and scraps of plant fiber, that they may have developed forms of tailored clothing. Primitive garments sewn together by hand. It's impossible to confirm completely. But you believe it. You've seen the deftness with which they tie knots, wrap their limbs, adjust their clothing without a second thought. These movements feel old. Inherited. As if passed down like stories, their diet also tells its own story. A hard one. These bodies weren't just shaped by cold, they were powered by it. Neanderthals required staggering numbers of calories. 4,000. 5,000. Sometimes more. just to stay alive. You've watched them devour an entire deer leg in what felt like a few minutes. No seasoning. No vegetables. Just muscle, fat, and the will to keep going. One moment in particular stays with you. A cache, uncovered from beneath a mound of snow. Inside, nothing but slabs of animal fat. Carefully stored. Preserved like treasure. This wasn't a treat. It was fuel. A dense, high-energy resource that could burn inside them like wood in a stove. You are handed a lump of reindeer fat. It smells like nothing you want near your mouth. But they chew it with pleasure, like it's the best thing they've ever tasted, and then there's the hunt. One moment burned into your memory with startling clarity, a group returns during a snow squall, dragging behind them the heavy body of what looks like a woolly ibex. The snow swirls in blinding sheets, but they move with precision. No commands are given. No instructions are shouted. They know the steps. Some strip meat. Some sever sinew. One begins roasting the liver on stones heated to a dull red. The entire process unfolds like a dance rehearsed for generations, yet it's not all grit and grim necessity. Sometimes, in the rare stillness between storms and labor, they gather by the fire and hum to themselves. Low, tuneless melodies that seem more like memory than music. They gesture with their hands, telling stories you'll never decode, sketching shapes into the air. One carves a notch into a bone. Then another. Then another. It might be counting. It might be a calendar. It might be nothing. But it means something to them. Even in those quietest moments, the cold never leaves. It presses in, a constant presence, a character in the story who never speaks but is always watching. You begin to respect it. You learn to fear it. And most of all, you learn to admire the people who live inside its shadow and call it home. You, meanwhile, have developed a ritual of your own. Every morning begins the same way. You wake up. You check if your heart is still beating. Then you check how many fingers or toes you can still feel. You wiggle them, celebrate if they move, and brace yourself for the next wave of cold. One morning, your hands are shaking uncontrollably. You can't even form a fist. A Neanderthal woman notices. She doesn't say anything. Just walks over, wraps a hot stone in fur, and drops it into your lap. You clutch it like it's life itself. She returns to her spear without another glance. That one small act is enough to shake something loose in you. You are not in a world where comfort exists. You are in a world where survival is currency. And every breath you take is bought and paid for by adaptation. The Neanderthals figured out how to pay that price a long time ago. It is your fourth day among them, and a slow, strange realization begins to settle in. Not with a jolt, not with drama, but like frost creeping across a windowpane, gradual, quiet, and impossible to ignore. You have spent these days walking just behind them, watching every movement, listening to the rough cadence of their breath, their grunts, their silences. You have studied the way they live, the way they hunt, the way they eat. But now, your thoughts begin to shift. Your mind drifts to a question you didn't think to ask when you first trudged into this frozen, prehistoric snow globe. How are they thinking about all of this? You view the world through layers. Reason. Language. Cause and effect. You name things, plan things, justify things. But what about them? What filters shape their reality? Do they dream in pictures or in sounds? Do they plan days in advance or just respond in the moment? Do they feel remorse when they eat the last bite of ibex liver, or do they even mark the difference between mine and ours? You crouch beside one of them, an older male with a face carved by time. Deep-set eyes sit beneath a prominent brow, and a lifetime of scars etch patterns into his skin like the rings of an ancient tree. He sits with slow, deliberate focus, grinding a chunk of ochre into fine powder. The motion is repetitive, almost meditative, and it is the same as what he did yesterday. And the day before that. But this is not thoughtless habit. His hands move with purpose. His eyes stay fixed. Somewhere behind that heavy brow and those beetle-black eyes, a brain is turning over thoughts, and here is the unexpected truth: his brain is bigger than yours. Yes, bigger. Neanderthals, on average, had larger brains than modern humans. Their skulls were broader, their crania roomier. But before you imagine him as some kind of prehistoric Einstein wrapped in furs and reeking of wood smoke, remember that brain size alone means little. It is not about volume. It is about how the circuits are connected. The shape of cognition. The texture of thought. Their brains were shaped differently. In them, the areas responsible for vision and motor control were unusually large. And of course that makes sense. In a world where survival depends on tracking subtle movement in blizzards, hurling spears at stampeding giants, or spotting the twitch of a predator's ear in the undergrowth. Visual processing and physical coordination are not luxuries. They are requirements. Life depends on them. But that specialization may have come with a cost. The parts of the brain associated with abstract thought, long-term planning, creativity, what you rely on to imagine, to theorize, to daydream, might have been smaller. Not absent. Just less dominant. This raises a deeper question, and one historians and scientists continue to wrestle with: what kind of minds did they have? Did they experience an inner life rich with metaphor and meaning? Did they form stories about the world, or did they live through it moment to moment, shaped more by instinct than introspection? You glance toward a younger male sitting in the shade of a tree, turning something over in his hand. A carved piece of bone, not much longer than a finger, marked with shallow grooves. He runs his thumb across the lines, again and again, slowly, as if counting. Or maybe remembering. Or maybe doing neither. Is it a primitive tally? A keepsake? A fidget toy without the fidget? Scholars argue about objects like this. Some say the marks are notation, early math. Others think they are meaningless scratches, idle marks from idle hands. But when you see the boy's concentration, the way he keeps touching the grooves with the same rhythm, it begins to feel like something more. Something personal. Not quite art. Not quite tool. Something in between. And then there is the smell. One of the more speculative theories, fringe, but not absurd, suggests Neanderthals may have processed the world differently than you do. That their cognitive map was shaped by scent. The olfactory bulbs in their brains were large, significantly larger than yours, implying that smell played an unusually strong role in how they navigated, remembered, and interpreted the world around them. It is possible, just possible, that they understood emotions, intentions, even danger through the air itself. That they smelled changes in the wind and shifts in group behavior. That scent, to them, was a kind of language. You try to picture that. A world not organized by sight and sound, but by invisible trails of meaning floating on the breeze. It makes your mind reel. But it also makes sense. Maybe this was part of their brilliance, a kind of intelligence more rooted in body and environment than in abstract ideas. Later that day, you follow them to a frozen stream. Something is happening. A hunt is being prepared, though no one speaks. No words. Just nods. Glances. A grunt here. A hand raised there. And within moments, 4 of them begin to fan out. You blink, and they have melted into a formation. You realize what they are doing. They are circling the ravine, preparing to flush something out. They are building a trap without blueprint, discussion, or hesitation. This is strategy. But not the kind you are used to. It is not the result of a meeting or a plan. It is not designed with paper or logic. It comes from somewhere older. Intuition honed by repetition. Memory locked in muscle. Understanding passed silently from body to body, gesture to gesture. Naturally, you ruin it. A misstep. A sound. A startled breath. The herd of ibex scatters before the trap can close. The forest explodes with crashing hooves and snapping branches. The moment is lost, you brace for rebuke. For blame. But none comes. No shouting. No glares. They simply reset. Begin again. Move on. Their indifference is not cruel. It is practical. They do not have time to dwell on failure. The ice does not care how sorry you are. Neither do they. That night, as you sit near the fire, one of the women kneels in the ash and begins to draw. Her fingers trace lines across the soot. Some are straight. Some curve. They loop and twist, intersect and separate. They look almost like letters, but not quite. They carry shape but not message. Or maybe you just can't read it. Historians debate symbols like these. Some believe they are evidence of representational thinking, of proto-writing. Others argue they are mere idle gestures, without meaning. But as you watch her repeat the lines, again and again, you sense intention. A pattern. Perhaps memory. Perhaps ritual. Perhaps something older than language and deeper than words. You think of that tired cartoon image, of the Neanderthal lumbering forward, all brow and brawn, dragging knuckles and squinting like someone who lost a fight with fire. The dumb brute with no curiosity. No culture. No spark. And you realize just how far off that picture is. Because here, in the firelight, they observe. Constantly. The young ones study the elders. They mimic their hand motions, their posture, their pace. They learn by shadowing, by repetition, by slow absorption. They touch objects not just to use them, but to know them. You've watched them stop to study how the light moves on a stone, how smoke curls through the air. Something is happening behind those low brows. Something that is not only hunger, even their tools hold traces of thought. You examine a scraper made from flint. Its edges are chipped in a perfect arc. Not random. Not rushed. A design shaped by trial and memory. The handle is smoothed by touch, and a faint smudge of resin clings to the base. Proof that the blade was secured not just by hand but by glue. This is not luck. This is learning. You linger on that tool until one of the women notices. She holds out a smaller one, palm open. It is finer, almost dainty in comparison. The edge is scalloped, delicate and sharp. But what catches your eye is the tiny diagonal notch in the handle. Decorative. Coded. Functional. You glance at her. She offers no explanation. Just a smirk and a slow turn back toward the fire. It is the prehistoric version of a dare. Figure it out if you can. Researchers continue to wonder how Neanderthals passed on knowledge. Was it by demonstration? Observation? Shared tasks? There were no lectures. No chalkboards. But clearly, something was taught. Something moved from hand to hand, from body to body, across years and lifetimes. And failure was not punished. It was simply repeated until it was not. Later, just as the stars begin to claim the sky, you witness something else. Something unexpected. A small gathering. A circle forming near the fire. In the center, an elder woman with tangled hair sits with two stones and begins to tap them together. Not randomly. Not for work. Rhythmically. A beat emerges. Others join in. Some slap the ground with open palms. Others drum softly on their chests or nearby logs. The sound is not music. Not exactly. But it is close. It is layered. It builds. One of the children begins to hum, a low tone that rises and falls, a soft sound that vibrates like wind brushing against a cave mouth. You sit back, breath caught. You had spent all your time focusing on how they endure. On how they fight, build, kill, and carry. But now you see something else. They feel. They connect. They move together, not just to hunt, but to be together. There is rhythm. And maybe, just maybe, there is joy. Skeptics will argue this means nothing. That you are projecting. That this is noise, not song. That the pigments and marks are nothing but the scratches of survival. But if this is not culture, then what is? The modern mind loves to build stories out of symbols. Maybe Neanderthals did not tell stories. Maybe they did not name the stars. But they did something. They gestured. They carved. They hummed and marked and gathered. And through those acts, they left behind more than bones. Did they have imagination? Did they invent the unseen? Did they fear things that lived only in thought? You cannot answer that. No one can, but when you lie down that night, wrapped in your now permanent hyena hide blanket, you do not listen just for the wind or the fire. You listen to the silence between them. And in that silence, there is something. A weight. A presence. Not empty. Not hollow. Full of echoes. Full of thought. Full of a life not told in words, but still deeply, undeniably human. And before sleep pulls you under, one final question lingers. If you could speak with them, truly speak, what would they ask? Would they want to know about cities? About rockets? About glowing screens and electric dreams? Or would they point to the stars and ask you something else entirely? What happened to all the quiet? By now, you have completely stopped trying to keep your hands clean. There is ash caked under your fingernails, streaks of dried blood staining your sleeves, and the once pristine fabric of your modern pants now carries the unmistakable scent of roasted mammoth layered over cold mud and smoke. You smell like survival. But oddly, that means something. It means you have earned a sliver of trust. Not full acceptance, not complete belonging, but a tentative welcome into their orbit. You are now allowed closer to the heart of the camp, closer to the unspoken rituals that power their everyday existence. And today, that means tools, a lot of people, safely tucked into the modern warmth of lecture halls or living rooms. Still cling to a tired cliché. They think of Neanderthals as one-note rock bashers, fumbling around with stones and hoping that, by sheer dumb luck, something sharp and usable will fall out. They imagine crude, thoughtless violence masquerading as craftsmanship. But what you are about to witness, the unfolding of a process both elegant and deliberate, will scrub that smug assumption right off your frostbitten face. It begins with a rock. Not just any rock, but a specific hunk of flint, gray and unremarkable at first glance. To you, it is just a chunk of stone. But to the Neanderthal seated before you, legs folded beneath him, this is something else entirely. Possibility. Design. Precision waiting to be released. He selects a hammerstone, a smaller, denser rock shaped by years of handling, and gently brings it against the flint. Not a swing. Not a smash. Just a tap. Then another. A flick of the wrist. A pause. Chips begin to flake away. Razor-thin slivers scatter across the ground like dry petals in the wind. But they are not random. Each flake is intentional, each chip part of a greater plan. He works in a spiral, rotating the core, adjusting the angle, coaxing out the hidden geometry from within the stone. It is not destruction. It is revelation. A sculpture within a sculpture. You watch, mesmerized, as the pattern unfolds, tap, flick, rotate, repeat. A rhythm of focused silence. This is not brute strength at work. This is knowledge. Method. Mastery. You are watching the Levallois technique in action, a flaking strategy so sophisticated that it took modern archaeologists decades of trial and error to even begin to understand how it worked. The first blows prepare the core, shaping it in a precise way so that a single, well-placed strike will produce a flake of the exact shape and thickness needed. It is mathematical. It is architectural. It is quietly astonishing. Historians still argue about its origin. Some believe Neanderthals developed it independently. Others suggest it may have been borrowed or co-developed alongside early Homo sapiens. But one thing is certain, this technique is not the product of guesswork. It is learned, refined, and passed on. This is craft. You wander over to another part of the camp and kneel beside a younger Neanderthal positioned beside a stump used for tool storage. She reaches into a pile and pulls out a scraper. Then presses it into your hands. It is warm from use. One edge is smooth, polished by the repetition of work. The other is jagged, finely serrated like a prehistoric bread knife. You look at her. She meets your gaze and gives a small, almost imperceptible nod. Then she gestures toward a nearby hide and mimics the slicing motion. You try. You fumble. Your hand trembles and the edge skips. Your movement is awkward, tentative, inefficient. She watches silently, expression unreadable. Then, without any sign of impatience, she takes the scraper back and performs the same motion. Smooth. Effortless. The blade glides through hide like it was drawn by instinct. It takes her 2 seconds to finish what took you 30. You nod. She nods back. That's the lesson. Next, she picks up another tool, longer, thinner, slightly curved. It looks almost surgical, almost delicate. It resembles a modern awl, and when she presses the point through a fold of hide, a small, perfect hole appears. One piece of a bigger mystery. Archaeological finds have uncovered bone needles. Some with holes so small and precise they seem impossible for a hand lacking fine dexterity. Thread does not survive across millennia, but these tools hint at its former presence. Something must have passed through those eyelets. Sinew. Plant fiber. Hair. No one knows for sure. But someone once knew, and someone taught someone else, and then there are the materials. The complexity grows deeper. You have seen sinew-wrapped handles, proof that they understood not just how to make tools, but how to assemble them. Composite tools made of stone, bone, wood, glue. Adhesives distilled from birch pitch, extracted using fire in oxygen-restricted conditions. It is not fire for fire sake. It is engineering. Controlled heat. Time-sensitive processes. That's not just fire go boom. That's low-tech chemistry guided by high-stakes knowledge. Later, you observe a group of hunters preparing for what looks to be a long expedition. They sit in a half-circle, checking equipment the way a modern mechanic would check a toolkit. Spears are laid out and examined one by one. Stone tips are tested, and if they are dull, they are renapped with small adjustments. Some are scrapped entirely, tossed into the refuse pile. There is no attachment. If a tool does not function, it does not stay. Performance is survival. You follow them to a high bluff that overlooks a frozen valley. Below, a herd of reindeer picks its way along a narrow trail, unaware of the danger above. One Neanderthal crouches, still as stone, watching. He raises his spear and holds it with complete focus. Then, at just the right moment, he moves. What follows is not a throw. It is a launch, a full-body release. His movement is fluid and precise, every muscle working in harmony. The wooden shaft leaves his hand and arcs through the air, spinning like a dancer in mid-leap. The flint point flashes once in the low sun. It lands. The reindeer stumbles. A second spear follows. Then a third. Then motion erupts, the herd bolts. Snow flies. But one reindeer, an older male, does not rise. He twitches, falls still. The hunters move quickly, not in frenzy, but in a well-rehearsed series of rolls. One slits the throat cleanly. Another goes for the tendons at the leg. A third begins the methodical task of skinning. Pulling hide in long strokes as practiced as any surgeon's incision. Back at the camp, you are handed a flake. It looks like nothing, a sliver of stone no bigger than a cookie. But when you press it against meat, it glides. It separates sinew with the ease of a razor. You realize instantly that this was not debris. This was not accident. This was made with intention for this exact task. You keep turning it in your hand, marveling at the sharpness, the purpose, the design behind its simplicity. You wonder, how many of these are made in a single day? A dozen? 50? Were there specialists responsible for their production, or did every member of the group know how to make what they needed? Historians have theories. Some believe in division of labor, dedicated toolmakers. Others suggest a shared knowledge base, where everyone learned enough to function and contribute. Maybe it was both. A system that flexed with circumstance and skill. Your hands are sore now. Not just from work, but from holding the weight of understanding. These tools are not passive objects. They are extensions of life itself. A sharp edge means efficiency. Means calories gained, not lost. Means warmth. Means time saved. Means survival. Around the fire, they continue. One is carefully reworking the edge of a scraper. Another rummages through the supply pile, looking for a better point for piercing. A third is heating strips of birch bark over a flame, coaxing out pitch as smoke drifts upward in curling trails. You sit quietly and watch them. These are not brutes smashing rocks at random. These are craftspeople. Artisans. Problem solvers. And somewhere in the blur between instinct and intellect, between survival and skill, something remarkable emerges. You cannot shake the thought, if you gave them a modern workshop, a box of metal, a spool of wire, and a single week to observe, they would probably hand you a better multi-tool than the overpriced gadget in your kitchen drawer. And now, finally, you feel it, that ache in your chest. That subtle unraveling of long-held assumptions. Not because of their muscles. Not because of their strength. Not because of their survival. The most unsettling part of the Neanderthals might not be their bodies, it might be their minds. You wake to a scent that makes your stomach lurch and growl at the same time. It is unmistakable and unrelenting, raw meat roasting over hot coals, thick in the air like smoke-soaked gravy. It clings to your hair, coats your tongue, and seeps into the fibers of your shirt. There is a cracked femur lying beside your head, one end gleaming with half-scooped marrow, and deep tooth marks gouged into the surface so viciously it looks like someone tried to chew through the leg of a wooden chair. Welcome to breakfast. Here, among the Neanderthals, food is not approached casually. There is no concept of grazing or light meals. They do not snack. They do not nibble. And they most certainly do not skip. Food is not leisure. It is purpose. It is the backbone of the day. And their eating habits? They are nothing short of a declaration, eat like your life depends on it, because it absolutely does. You watch one of them, a large male with shoulders like stacked stones, let's call him Gur, slice into a heavy slab of meat with the practiced ease of someone who does this more often than breathing. The animal it came from is unclear. It could be aurochs. It might be horse. There's even a chance it's rhinoceros. It is large. It is muscle-dense. And it is not your business. Gur doesn't care what it is. Neither should you. He lays the slab onto a flat stone heated in the embers. It hisses. Smoke rises. Grease pops and sizzles in the flame. Gur watches it without blinking. Then he tears into the edges with a flint blade, a tool so sharp and polished it could probably shave your entire face just by being waved too close. He slices off a chunk and hands it to you. You chew. It is tough. It is stringy. It tastes vaguely like singed leather marinated in iron. But it is warm. It is protein. And it reaches something deep inside your core that you didn't know was hungry. In this world, eating is not an isolated task. It is not scheduled around other events. It is the event. Their bodies demand it. Their energy needs are massive, bordering on unthinkable. The average Neanderthal male needed somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 calories every single day just to maintain basic function. Females slightly less, but still astonishing by modern standards. This is Olympic-level consumption, without the benefit of smoothies, protein powders, or energy gels. Their menu was simpler. It included things like mammoth flank and roasted reindeer liver, and marrow. Always marrow. Marrow was gold. It was calorie-dense, rich in fat, and easy to get once the bone was cracked. You see children sucking on femurs, their small faces smeared with grease and dust, grinning like it's candy. You see women prying marrow loose with sticks, their hands steady and stained. The adults consume it without ceremony. There are no plates. No salt. Just warmth and nourishment and silence, and bones. They are not trash. They are treasure. After each meal, the long bones are placed onto stone anvils and struck with rock hammers. It is done with uncanny accuracy, the blows landing precisely to split the shaft lengthwise. You try it once. The bone rolls. The hammer glances off. Your wrist throbs for the rest of the day. A nearby Neanderthal child watches you fail and laughs. Not cruelly, but with the confident amusement of someone who knows better. Nothing is wasted. Skulls are opened for brains. Ribs are cooked over coals. Hooves are tossed into the fire to soften. Kidneys are saved in pouches made from hide, possibly for preservation, possibly as a strange gesture of pride. You're not sure which is more unsettling. Historians still dispute the exact breakdown of their diet. Some insist that Neanderthals were near-total carnivores, apex predators in a world of large game and little mercy. Others argue for more variety. Perhaps seasonal plants, nuts, tubers, or berries found their way into the mix when available. But considering the harshness of the landscape, the dominant theme is unmistakable: meat was the core. Vegetables were side notes. If they were not frozen solid first. Later, at the stream, you see something that surprises you. A Neanderthal woman crouches beside a pile of scavenged bones, using a sharpened stick to delicately remove tissue from crevices too small for fingers. Beside her, a flat stone bears a dark red stain. You move closer, curious. This is not just butchery. This is something more. She is rendering fat. Collecting tallow. Boiling and separating. Maybe mixing it with crushed nuts or dried berries. The result is dense and waxy, a compact form of preserved energy. Something resembling what modern researchers might call pemmican, a shelf-stable, high-calorie bar for long-distance survival. She presses some into your palm. It smells faintly rancid. It tastes worse. But it could probably power you through a week in a snowstorm without blinking. Later still, you follow a group into the woods, feet crunching over frostbitten underbrush. They track a boar through the trees. Silent and focused. The moment of the kill is fast. A spear hits. A body slams. There is squealing. Then silence. The animal is bound, wrapped with sinew, and dragged home like luggage. Back at camp, the processing begins. It is grim and beautiful at the same time. The skin is peeled in strips. Organs are lifted, examined, passed to those who know what to do. Heart to the fire. Liver to the elders. Intestines to a cleaning pool. Maybe they will become storage sacks. Maybe bindings. Nothing is discarded unless it has no conceivable purpose, and the skull. The skull is different. It is lifted. Turned. Placed upright near the fire with care. No one speaks. No one explains. You gesture a question. Ritual? Significance? No answer comes. But no one touches it again. It sits in silence, half-shadowed, like a guest at the edge of the gathering. Some archaeologists argue that such behaviors could be the beginnings of spiritual practice. Others believe it is habit, simple repetition turned symbolic through time. Still, others say it's coincidence. But when you watch the group settle for their evening meal, when you see how they gather, how they share, how they mark this act with presence, not ceremony, you sense that food is more than fuel. It is structure. It gives rhythm to the day. You see it around the fire. Not speech, not song, but quiet attention. Pieces of meat passed around. Bites offered. No one eats before the fire is steady. No one hoards. No one rushes. There is peace, and laughter, too. You see a young Neanderthal creep up to a sleeping companion and smear a greasy finger across their forehead. The sleeper snorts awake. There is a pinecone launched. A second pinecone retaliates. Suddenly, it's a full-blown grease-slicked brawl. It is messy. It is chaotic. And it is affectionate in a way you hadn't expected. Then, just as quickly, it ends. The group settles. Chewing resumes. Bones crack. Hides are scraped. The fire hums. There is one more detail. A theory. A possibility. Some believe Neanderthals stored food, hiding meat under snowbanks, packing it into caves to keep it from spoiling. No one can prove it. But when you recall how they hide tools, how they organize materials, how deliberate they are with preparation, it doesn't seem far-fetched. Meat is life. They knew how to protect life. You return to camp and spot something new. A child gnaws at a bone, the size of it comical in their tiny hands. Not far away, an adult is roasting fish over coals, turning it gently, letting the skin bubble. Fish? Here. In this weather? Yes. Apparently, they fish too. Some archaeological sites have turned up shells, fish bones, and even crab remains. These people were not just predators. They were pragmatists. They ate what was there. If it moved, they hunted it. If it didn't, they found a way to make it move, and now, at last, you sit. Belly full. Hands sore. Face flushed from fire and effort. The cold is still here, still biting, but distant. For the first time today, you feel truly warm, you think back over everything. This isn't random scavenging. This isn't barbarism. It's a system. A culinary ritual built on efficiency, cooperation, and ancestral knowledge. There are no napkins. No seasoning. No recipes. But there is intention, and underneath all of it, something deeper, a hunger not just to eat, but to last. To continue. To hold fast through the ice and the dark and whatever came next. So now, beneath a sky pricked with stars, with marrow still thick on your tongue and your eyelashes dusted in frost, you lean back and whisper to no one at all, Neanderthals didn't just eat to live, they feasted to endure. There is a moment at dusk, when the wind settles and the cold air stills, when the fire hisses gently instead of roaring. The light fades to blue, and for once, no one is moving. You shift on your haunches and notice them, those strange, carefully placed objects near the rear wall of the cave. Until now, you had overlooked them, mistaking them for debris. But now, in this silence, they appear as something else entirely: shells. Feathers. Animal teeth threaded through twisted strands of sinew. Small lumps of ochre tucked with care into shallow crevices in the rock, like gifts or offerings to something unseen. You stare, unsure of what to make of it. And then it dawns on you: these Neanderthals were not just enduring life out here in their frozen wilderness. They were decorating it. You inch your way toward a woman seated near the fire, the same one you've seen preparing herself before every hunt. Her arms are lined with smears of vivid red, the pigment catching the flicker of firelight. It is ochre, ground finely and mixed with melted fat into a paste that clings to the skin with a ruddy sheen. She dips 2 fingers into the mixture, dabs a streak across her brow, then touches her cheekbone in 3 small dots, placed deliberately. There is no mirror. She does not hesitate. You tilt your head and gesture toward the pigment with a questioning look. She meets your eyes for a moment, then reaches out and drags her thumb across your forearm, leaving a broad crimson line in her wake. The paste is warm from sitting near the flames, coarse and damp, smelling faintly of iron and something resinous, like sap drawn from pine bark. You look at the mark. It stands out sharply on your skin. You look absurd. She gives no reaction. Her expression remains steady. This is not play. This is not idle. This has meaning. Historians still argue endlessly about what body decoration meant to Neanderthals. Was it camouflage, a way to blend into the landscape, to disappear into snow-dappled trees and tangled undergrowth? Was it ceremonial, worn for rituals of mourning or celebration? Was it social, signaling rank or role within the group? Was red the color of courage, of loss, of love? There are no definitive answers, but the act itself, that they collected ochre, that they ground it, carried it, stored it, and applied it with intent, speaks volumes. Not just about their customs, but about the structure of their inner lives. Later, you notice something hanging from a jut of stone near the back of the cave. A necklace. Real, unmistakable jewelry. You edge closer. It is strung on a length of braided leather, and through it are threaded polished eagle talons, smoothed to a soft sheen, and 1 scallop shell dyed with what looks like black pigment. You pick it up gently, holding it like it might dissolve in your fingers. The design is simple. The materials are rugged. But the purpose is unmistakable. It is not an accident. It was made to be worn. A young male notices you admiring it. He strides over, plucks it from your grasp, and slips it over his neck in one fluid motion. Then he straightens, lifts his chin, and swells his chest with subtle pride. The instinct is unmistakable. He is showing off. Peacocking, it turns out, is not unique to Homo sapiens. Evidence of this behavior is scattered across archaeological sites: pendants made from pierced animal teeth, bones polished until they gleam, pieces of carved ivory smoothed into discs. Some of these materials, especially shells, were found far from the coast. That means they had to be carried, passed hand to hand, across long distances. These weren't just baubles. They were tokens. Symbols. Perhaps even messages. You wonder, briefly, what yours might have been. A knuckle bone, roughened by wear, slung onto a cord of sinew. A polished sliver of amber with sunlight caught inside. A fragment of tusk shaped into a spiral that meant something to no one but you. And then you see something else. You wake one night to the sound of breath and movement, soft and deliberate. You blink the sleep from your eyes and see 2 Neanderthals crouched low in the deepest chamber of the cave, their bodies silhouetted by torchlight. One is holding a chunk of dark mineral pigment, manganese, probably. The other, a flat scrap of bone, broad and worn smooth. Together, they press and smear, flick and blow. Shapes begin to appear on the cave wall. Slowly, carefully. You watch from the shadows, you cannot tell exactly what they are making. The shapes are partial. Faded. Is it a bison? A woolly rhino? A coiled pattern meant to signify water, or wind, or something else entirely? You squint. The lines curve and loop. Some are deliberate. Some seem like gestures made for the sake of movement itself. It could be a figure. It could be a memory. Or it could be nothing more than a swirl of thought given form. Historians continue to argue over the idea of Neanderthal art. The masterpieces in Lascaux, Chauvet, and Altamira were the work of Homo sapiens. But Neanderthals left their marks, too. In Spain, a red ladder shape. In France, grids scratched into rock. In several caves, handprints that predate the arrival of modern humans. The real question is not whether they made marks. It is whether they meant them, but in this moment, watching by firelight, you do not care. The only thing you feel is the unmistakable pull of it, the desire to leave a trace. To say, in whatever language or shape or pigment, I was here, that impulse lives in all of us. Maybe it always has. You begin to notice more. Small bundles of feathers, tucked carefully into crevices. Crow feathers, slick and black, their tips arranged to catch light. They are not placed randomly. They are intentional. You look closer. Above one sleeping space, a fan of vulture plumes forms a kind of crest. None of the feathers show signs of butchery. They were not eaten. They were collected. Admired. Used. Some researchers have proposed that Neanderthals adorned themselves with these feathers, particularly those from birds of prey. Eagle claws. Raven wings. Not for warmth. For something else. For presence. For meaning. There is even a fringe theory that suggests the beginnings of fashion, an aesthetic consciousness. Not just layering hides to shield from wind, but draping them in deliberate ways. You scoff at the idea at first. But then you see one man adjusting his hide wrap, tugging one side higher over his shoulder, frowning slightly, repositioning it until satisfied. It seems trivial. But now you are not so sure. Later, someone presses a piece of carved bone into your palm. It is small and light, grooved with repeating spirals. It has no edge. It does not cut. It does not drill or scrape. It does nothing. And yet, it is shaped. Smoothed. Balanced. It feels good to hold. That is its purpose, a trinket. A keepsake. A memory made solid. Maybe it belonged to someone who is gone. Maybe it was passed between hands for no reason except that it felt right to do so. Or maybe it was simply beautiful, and isn't that enough? Once you begin to notice these things, you cannot stop. The patterns in the way the furs are laid around the fire. The engraved handles of certain tools. A simple braid of sinew knotted and worn at the wrist. Everywhere you look, there is choice. There is thought. There is expression. This was not randomness. This was design, not design as we know it, not architectural, not deliberate in the academic sense, but design as intention. Design as self. Design as a whisper of identity rising through the cracks of daily survival, and here you are. Filthy. Exhausted. Marked with ochre. Wearing a scavenged necklace you barely understand. Sitting with your knees hugged to your chest, your face lit by orange flame, your heart strangely full, and in that stillness, something settles in you. They weren't just surviving, they were expressing, and maybe, just maybe, in the hush between hunger and the next long hunt. They were dreaming too. You are halfway through constructing your fifth miserable excuse for a fire. Your fingers are raw now, the skin split in places, numb from cold yet clumsy with effort. The twigs in your grasp are damp, brittle in the wrong way, and your attempts at structure collapse again and again like a child's first tower of sticks. Frustration settles deep in your chest, then, without announcement or fanfare, an elder Neanderthal approaches. He does not speak. He does not shake his head or laugh or offer any sign of impatience. He simply crouches down beside you, knees creaking, joints shifting with age and wisdom. His movement is slow, purposeful, as if the very act of lowering himself to the ground has meaning. He examines your sad little pile of kindling with a glance both bored and careful. His face reveals nothing. It is a face carved by time and weather, smoothed by years of wind, smoke, and cold. Like a cliff face that has stood too long to care who watches it now. The soot has settled deep into the lines of his hands, dark streaks running through the creases like veins of old knowledge. His palms are layered with memory. His fingers are thick and scarred, but sure, he does not sigh. He does not mock. Instead, he begins disassembling your fire, twig by twig, in complete silence. Not roughly, not with frustration, but with the quiet precision of someone who has done this more times than they could ever count. Each movement is a correction. A lesson without words. From a small leather pouch tied to his waist, he retrieves something that at first looks like a fragment of rot. A shriveled sponge, maybe. But then it catches the light, and you see the pale gold glow in its threads. It is fibrous, dry, delicate. You recognize it faintly from books, from exhibits behind glass. Amadou. Tinder fungus. Not myth. Not theory. But real. Essential. Alive in his hands. He rubs it gently between his palms, and the texture shifts. The fibers loosen, softening into something like wool. There is a reverence in the way he handles it. He lays it on the ground with the care one might use to swaddle an infant. He surrounds it with curls of bark and the finest twigs, crafting a bed of breath and invitation. Then he brings out the tools, not a modern lighter. Not a match. Not even flint alone. He holds a chunk of iron pyrite in one hand, its metallic surface glinting faintly, and a small piece of flint in the other. The contrast is striking. Not flashy, not dramatic, just quietly ancient. Familiar in his grip. He strikes the two together. Not with force. Not with speed. But with perfect precision. Clink. Clink. Pop sparks leap forward in a small burst, and one finds its way to the amadou. The fungus responds. It does not burst into flame. It breathes. A curl of orange emerges from its center, slow and steady, like a whisper waking in the dark. He leans forward. Adds thin twigs, layer upon layer. Then exhales, once, into the growing glow. Not a puff. Not a gasp. Just breath. And then, like magic, no, like skill, the fire is alive. You do not speak. You do not move. You sit frozen, lips parted slightly, watching as warmth and light flicker into being where your failure once lay. The elder gives no smile. No nod. He shrugs, as if to say, "It was never hard." Then he stands and leaves. That is the lesson. It hits you sharply, without warning. Like a slap made of realization. You are a child of convenience. A product of buttons and switches. Your entire world has been shaped by ease. A stovetop. A match. A flick of the wrist. And yet here, beside a man who may never write his own name, a man coated in ash and wrapped in fur, fire is drawn forth like breath. You feel it then, deeply and with shame, how fragile your modern self truly is. Historians continue to argue over how Neanderthals discovered fire. Some claim they stumbled upon it, scavenged it from the world's temper. Lightning strikes, lava flows, smoldering trees after a storm. They may have gathered it like berries, carried it carefully back to camp, prayed it would last. Others suggest something more deliberate. That they learned. That they practiced. That they tamed. The truth feels less abstract when you're here, watching. They are not borrowing it. They are making it. They are shaping it. Fire is not a mystery to them. It is not a miracle. It is part of the pattern. It is a tool they maintain, adjust, repair. Like a roof. Like a path. Like language. You begin to see fire in every aspect of their world. Yes, it cooks their meat. But it also softens the toughest hides until they can be sewn into cloaks. It transforms green wood into strong, straight spear shafts. It purifies water. It prepares medicine. It seals wounds. It keeps wolves and cold and darkness at bay. It melts pitch into glue. It is their hearth, their workshop, their shield. When the sun goes down, they do not scatter. They draw in. Toward the fire. Toward each other. They sit with their backs to the cave wall, their eyes to the flame. They tend it together, each person responsible in some small way. They build rings of stone to trap the heat. They build backup fires. Smaller, off to the side. They store coals and ash so the next morning does not begin from scratch. You watch a child, no more than 5, pick up a glowing coal with a folded leaf. He carries it gently. Places it into a curl of bark, and then he leans close. His breath is careful. Rhythmic. The flame rises, slow and steady. He grins. Not with pride. With satisfaction. No one rushes in. No one hovers over him. He knows what he is doing. It is part of his world. Some theories go further. Some archaeologists suggest Neanderthals didn't just manage fire. They changed the world with it. Evidence of controlled burns, strategic clearing, patterns of charcoal that suggest purpose rather than chance. If this is true, then they were among the first to engineer nature. Not just live within it, but shape it to fit. Later that day, you walk alongside one of the hunters. The snow is soft underfoot, the air sharp and clear. He stops beside a tree, examines it, then another. He tests the bark. He smells it. Finally, he selects one and begins scraping. Thick, resinous sap clings to his stone blade. He holds it near a flame. The resin blackens, smokes. The edge darkens. He nods, he is tempering the blade. Hardening it. Strengthening it with heat. You have read this theory before. But to see it, up close, alive, is to see that it was never a theory. It is reality. He is not experimenting. He is working. Refining. Crafting with understanding. Back at the cave, a man crouches beside a pit oven. Bark and ash smolder in layers. The air is heavy with the scent, earthy, sharp, oddly sweet. He scrapes up a dark substance. Birch pitch. Sticky. Thick. Primitive glue. He presses a stone point into the shaft of a spear, coats it, then wraps it with sinew. The bond is strong. When you test it later, the point will not twist or pull free. This is not trial and error. This is chemistry. This is engineering. Even their sleeping places speak to fire. Beneath the bedding, they bury warm stones. These stones radiate heat for hours, tucked under layers of fur. You sleep there one night, and for the first time in a long time, you do not wake shivering. You are not dry. Not clean. Not entirely at peace. But you are warm. And warmth, in this world, means survival. You begin to treat fire differently. You learn to feel wood for dampness. You learn which sticks breathe and which ones choke. You stack twigs like scaffolding. You rotate logs. You cradle embers. You stop treating fire like a tool and begin to treat it like something with a pulse. Even the silence between you and the others changes. You sense something loosening. A glance, brief but open. A small nod. A half smile. One night, someone tosses you a shard of pyrite while you sit by the fire. No words. No explanation. Just a gesture. A welcome, and one night, without even thinking, you find yourself whispering to the flame. Not in language. Just breath. A murmur. A presence. A kind of thank you, because here, in this land of hunger and cold, fire is the only thing that answers. It is light, it is life, it is proof that someone is still here. This is one of the oldest relationships we have ever known. And somehow, in their quiet, soot-covered brilliance, the Neanderthals seem to understand it better than you ever did. So when the flames dim to embers, casting long shadows over the ochre-painted cave walls, you lean back. Your hands are black with ash. Your chest is warm. And you speak, not loudly, not in reverence, but simply into the dark. They did not worship fire, they lived it. You're up early, long before the sun even begins to consider rising. The air outside is brutal, sharp as flint, and it slices into your lungs with every breath. Each inhale is a punishment. Each exhale a plume of fog, thick and ghostly in the darkness. Your teeth chatter uncontrollably, knocking against each other with a strange, metallic clatter, like bone chimes shaken by unseen wind. You're wrapped in your now familiar, increasingly foul hyena skin. Its once coarse texture has stiffened with grime, rank with days of exposure and unwashed sweat. The scent has deepened into something pungent, animal, wild. But it is warm. Or warm enough to keep your body from locking up in the frost. So you cling to it, pull it tighter around your shoulders, bury your nose in the greasy fur, and endure. Behind you, the cave sleeps. It breathes gently in the dark, full of shifting forms curled under hides and beside embers. The fire has dulled to its quietest form, a pulse of red light at the heart of ash. No crackle. No flame. Just a soft, persistent glow, and then, breaking the hush of frost and early shadow, you hear something strange. Unexpected. Something that doesn't fit the stillness. It begins as a vibration, a murmur, low and continuous. Not loud. Not sharp. But steady, like a deep current rising from the earth itself. A sound that seems to move through the dark rather than above it. A kind of humming. Rough. Deep. Not quite a growl, not quite a chant. It vibrates in your bones before your ears fully understand it. Not musical, not hostile, not entirely natural. It is simply present. Undeniably alive. You freeze, head tilted, trying to place it. Is it a predator? Some animal lowing in the woods? Is it wind caught in a hollow log? Or is it something else? Careful not to disturb the sleeping shapes around the coals, you inch closer. Your steps are slow, deliberate, placed with intention. Every movement a negotiation with the cold ground. The sound grows clearer. More textured. Two Neanderthals are seated near the remains of the fire, side by side, their shoulders nearly touching. They sway slightly, their bodies in subtle motion, timed to something internal. Their eyes are half closed, turned inward, unfocused. One of them clicks his tongue rapidly, a cascade of short, sharp notes. The other exhales in response, shaping the breath into a sound that rises, rounds off, and ends in a low bark. The rhythm is distinct. Measured. Deliberate. And then, you realize. They are speaking, not in words as you know them. Not in any language with vowels and verbs. But speaking nonetheless. Conversing. Communicating. Something passes between them, more than just sound. Scientists have debated for years whether Neanderthals had speech. Whether they possessed structured language. Whether they could whisper to each other at night, or tell stories by firelight. Whether they argued, teased, comforted, sang. The debate has filled entire libraries. But here, before your very eyes, the truth lives and breathes. They are not silent. They are not mimicking. They are talking. A third figure joins them, slipping through the cave's shadows with the quiet confidence of familiarity. Snow clings to his arms. He brushes it away and claps twice, sharp and clean. Then he slaps his thigh, exhales a grunt, and nods once. The two others respond without hesitation. One tilts his head. The other gives a soft hiss of breath, low and acknowledging. A message has been passed. No syntax. No vocabulary. Just sound. Pure meaning, shaped by rhythm. Then it comes. A call from the forest. A sound that cuts across the silence like a drawn line. Clear. Controlled. Powerful. Not a scream. Not a howl. Not a cry of panic. But a crafted signal. Loud enough to echo, soft enough to seem deliberate. The hairs on your arms rise. You know instantly, this was not random. This was shaped. Sent. Later, you learn the truth your textbooks only hinted at. The Neanderthal vocal tract was not as alien as once imagined. The hyoid bone was there, the same critical structure that supports the larynx in modern humans. Their skulls had different angles. Their nasal passages were broader. Their chests deeper. But the machinery for sound was intact. Maybe even optimized. Their voices would have sounded different, yes. But they would have meant something. Some linguists believe their speech came from the chest more than the throat. A deep, resonant register. Tones carried through breath, not just syllables. The sound of stone valleys and snowdrifts and winter silence. Chanting more than talking. Singing without melody. Language that needed no translation because it reached past thought and into emotion. As the sun climbs slowly into view, you hear it again. This time from children. Two small Neanderthals sit near a wall of the cave, tapping sticks against stone in a rhythmic pattern. They babble in clipped bursts, giggling as they echo each other. One creates a strange twist in the pattern. The other copies it. Then responds with a new one. Their game becomes a kind of song, layered with rhythm and pulse. Repetition with variation. Music without music. The adults glance over, briefly amused. No one interrupts. This is not play. This is practice, it is nonsense. And it is profound. You begin to understand. Maybe language did not begin with grammar. Maybe it was never rooted in logic. Maybe it was born in sound. In shared rhythm. In breath shaped by emotion. A fringe theory comes to mind, one you once dismissed. That Neanderthal speech was tonal, fluid, built from pitch rather than consonant. Like the hum of reassurance to a frightened child. Like the lift in a voice that asks a question in the dark. Like a voice that says, "You're not alone," and as evening falls again, another circle forms near the fire. One Neanderthal begins tapping the side of a hollowed log with his knuckles. A slow, steady beat. Another joins in with a low grunt. Then a third. The sounds weave. Repeat, fold over each other. No melody. No lyrics. But a kind of harmony. A pattern that builds and surrounds. The group leans into it, letting it fill the space. The fire flickers in time. The sound becomes a blanket. Warm. Protective. Intimate, it feels like a story, told without a single word. You close your eyes, half asleep, letting the sound move through you. You wonder what is being said. Are they recalling a hunt? Sharing a dream? honoring the dead. You don't know. But you believe it is real. Something is being handed down. Carried from one voice to the next. Passed through breath, you begin to listen differently. Not for syllables. Not for letters. But for tone. For movement. For weight, a rising grunt that ends on a high note. A curiosity. A question, 3 fast clicks. Agreement. Understanding, a hard exhale. A dismissal. A warning, these are not random sounds. These are performances. These are meaning, worn into shape, anthropologists may continue to argue. They may ask whether it was language, symbolic and rule-bound, or just something simpler. But here in this cave, the difference feels irrelevant. They are speaking, they are listening, they are human in ways you cannot explain. The next morning, you test your voice. You click your tongue. Once. Then again. You hum, a long, soft tone. You exhale through pursed lips. Curious. Tentative, heads turn, a moment of silence, then one Neanderthal copies your sound. Perfectly. Every inflection exact. Then he tilts his head and gives you a look. Not impressed. Not dismissive. Just. Evaluating. The second Neanderthal lets out a low chuckle. A real laugh. A sound of amusement. It is small. Brief. But unmistakable. You grin, you made a joke. A prehistoric joke. And they got it, but the moment that stays with you comes later, you're on night watch again. The others sleep in soft huddles of fur and quiet breathing. An older Neanderthal joins you, slow and deliberate. He does not speak often. His joints move stiffly. His eyes are clouded. His presence is steady. You point to the moon, right above the trees. A glowing shard in a black sky. He looks, then places a hand gently on his chest. His fingers rest there a moment. Then he lifts the hand, slow and wide, tracing a gentle arc into the sky. No words. No phrases. Just motion. Just meaning, and you feel it, something was here. Something still matters. Beautiful. In a world where every breath is shared, where silence is sacred and survival is joint effort, perhaps words are not needed at all. Perhaps meaning lives in rhythm. In tone. In gaze. You curl under your hide that night, the sound still echoing in your chest. Neanderthals did not shout into the void, they sang to it. You're starting to notice patterns now. Not just in how they track prey or shape tools, but in something subtler. In the cadence of their days. In the rhythms of their living. There is a consistency to how they move, how they pause, how they respond to one another. A kind of music written in muscle memory. You hear it in the way they hum when the cold creeps too deep into their bones. You feel it in the way their bodies shift in quiet synchronization, reading glances like lines in a story. It is not just instinct. It is choreography born of familiarity, but there is one realm that remains more elusive than the rest. One space that does not declare itself with smoke or stone. It does not move like a hunt. It does not nourish like a meal. It hangs instead in the space between bodies, in silences too heavy to be casual. In moments that pass without explanation, but not without meaning. Their relationships, you watch when you can. Not openly. Not intrusively. You learn to observe from the corner of your vision, to sit quietly, to let the knowledge come to you slowly. You see a female lay her hand gently on a male's shoulder as he returns from a long hunt. Her fingers rest there a second longer than they need to. Just long enough to be noticed. You see a pair of elders, their skin wrinkled and toughened by time, sitting back to back by the fire. No words pass between them, but they share heat. Share space, share presence. You see two younger males cleaning a hide, their jabs and shoves too sharp to be playful, their laughter too loud to be casual. Not quite a fight. Not quite a joke. Something murkier. Something real. This is more than cooperation. More than proximity. This is connection. And it is not simple. It is not tidy. It is knotted and layered and lived. The structure of Neanderthal society remains a question filled with guesswork. No records remain. No written names, no laws etched in stone. Only bones. Only shadows. Archaeologists piece together lives from fragments, from the curve of a rib, from the pattern of a burial. But here, among the living, the picture becomes clearer. You see a world held together not by dominance or obligation, but by bond. A world where people stay close. Where infants are rarely out of arm's reach. Where the ache of grief hangs below the surface, never spoken but always felt. One morning, you wake earlier than the others. The cave is still, quieter than it should be. The air feels heavy, thick, as if something presses down on the earth itself. There are no murmurs. No shifting of limbs. No soft coughs or sighs. Just silence. Not peaceful. Not calm. But dense. Tense. Waiting, you learn what has happened not through announcement, but through absence. A child has died. An infant. One you barely saw, always tucked against its mother's chest, so small and still that you often forgot it was there. Perhaps it had been sick. Perhaps it had never fully thrived. But you hadn't noticed. You hadn't been allowed to. The group had wrapped their sorrow in silence, folded it into themselves like ash hidden beneath snow. There is no wailing. No open grief. No howling to the sky. But the sadness is unmistakable. It settles over the group like smoke. Thin and clinging. It does not lift. They dig a shallow hollow in the frozen earth just beyond the cave mouth. The soil resists their bone tools, brittle from frost and time. They do not rush. Every motion is slow. Intentional. The hole is small, barely enough. The body is wrapped in softened fur, the limbs curled inwards, as if still sleeping. Ash is sprinkled across the bundle. Then earth. Then silence again. No one needs to say what it means. The mother kneels at the edge. Her hands tremble once, a flicker of loss that passes through her whole body. She kisses a small polished stone, holds it to her lips for a long moment, then places it beside the wrapped child and rises. She does not turn back. For decades, historians have argued about Neanderthal burial. Were their graves acts of ritual, or simply convenience? Were they signs of reverence, or only habit? This is no longer an academic question. This is not theory. This is tradition. Carried not in language, but in motion. Practiced, remembered, repeated, that evening, as the last light fades and the fire burns in flickers of orange and blue, something unspoken begins. Without a word, without command, each person steps forward to the fire and adds something small. A scrap of hide. A twisted feather. A smooth piece of bone. The flames shift with each addition. Sparks leap. Smoke curls. The fire changes. It grows. It becomes more than heat. It becomes memory, and the next day, life moves forward. As it must. But the shape of it is different now. The mother does not wander far. She stays near the fire. The others make space for her, not out of fear, not out of discomfort, but from understanding. No one urges her to help. No one rushes her to heal. She sits, hands folded, and the others step gently around her. You begin to see it in other places too. Small gestures of care, easily missed. two individuals always share food. Not just once, but always. They break meat into pieces and trade them without discussion. The timing is practiced. The order never changes. Elsewhere, the elders pass food to the youngest, taking only after the children have eaten. Not because they are told to. Because it is what is done. And at night, when the fire dims, you notice how they sleep. Not just in piles for warmth, but in clusters of connection. Arms across shoulders. Hands resting on ribs. Fingers curled into fur that is not their own. They do not sleep alone unless they must. The comfort of closeness is its own kind of survival. There is tenderness here. And there is more, something that resembles courtship. Something that might be love. You watch a man return from a solo trip. He has walked far, judging by the frost on his hair and the way his steps drag. He carries two things. A slab of meat, wrapped in curled bark, still steaming faintly from being freshly cut. And a small charm, carved from bone. Etched faintly with ochre. He approaches a woman and holds them out. She does not flinch. She does not speak. She looks at him. She looks at the gifts. She accepts them both. Presses her thumb to the charm. Then leans against him, soft and slow. That night, you see them beneath the same fur. Experts continue to question how Neanderthal families were formed. Did they bond in pairs? Rotate partners with the seasons? Did kinship mean the same thing it does now? Genetic studies reveal tight, closed loops. Marriages of cousins. Lineages with little variation. It is easy to judge. Easy to recoil, but then you remember the scale. These people live in groups of 20, maybe 30. The world is sparse. Choices are few. Family is not a preference. It is a necessity. And sometimes, the circle widens. Strangers are welcomed. Outsiders become kin. One day, you are drawn into a gathering. You do not understand the purpose. The group sits just beyond the clearing, exchanging food and small objects, passing them hand to hand. You are handed a strip of sinew, dried and thin. You hesitate. Then a woman reaches over and ties it gently around your wrist. No explanation. No fanfare. But the gesture carries weight. Perhaps it is a welcome. Perhaps a test. Perhaps both. You sit beside the same woman who once helped you build your first fire. She leans in and bumps her shoulder into yours. You glance over. She grins wide, teeth bared, then gestures at your hair, which has become a tangled mess of ash and grease. She mimes washing it with snow. You laugh. So does she. It is teasing. It is recognition, and now, you see it everywhere. They mock. They flirt. They console. They care, they love, not with words. Not with poetry. Not with ceremony. But with presence. With action. With shared burdens. With small comforts, with passing the best cut of meat. With standing guard beside someone who shivers in the dark. With staying close when illness comes. With not leaving, no matter how slow someone walks. You see a man with a twisted leg. Scarred. Clearly broken long ago. He moves with difficulty. Stumbles often. But someone steadies him. Someone waits for him. Someone hands him food before they eat. He does not thank them. He does not have to. This is not charity. This is inclusion. This is expectation met with action. In another world, in another time, he might have been left behind. Here, he is simply one of them. That night, wrapped in furs not your own, breathing in the scent of ash and stone and life, you stare into the fire and feel it settle in your chest. In a world this cold, this brutal, this unforgiving, affection is not a luxury. It is the first and final act of resistance. It is a declaration of what it means to belong. It is a silent vow, whispered not in words but in gesture. I will keep you warm, you will keep me human. The children never stop moving, even when the adults are sprawled in silence beside the fire, muscles limp with fatigue after heaving what feels like half a mammoth uphill through snowdrifts as thick and unforgiving as powdered granite. The children remain in motion. Their energy seems infinite, unbroken by the cold or by the weariness that has taken hold of every grown body in the camp. They dart through the trees with wild grace, scramble over icy boulders slick with frost, jab at one another with stick spears sharpened to blunt tips, their bodies charged with a restless momentum that defies the chill. You stand off to the side, arms folded, breath fogging in heavy white clouds as you watch them. Two children crouch low behind a fallen log, their forms nearly disappearing into the shadowed snow. They whisper in clicks and hums, their eyes locked on a squirrel perched just beyond, tiny hands tensed with anticipation. Their focus is complete, so intense that you'd think they were stalking something massive. One boy raises his stick, mimics a graceful throw, holds it for dramatic pause, and then collapses in a pile of giggles as the squirrel bolts into the underbrush. His companion retaliates by flinging a pine cone in a random direction, his laughter bursting out in full-bodied joy. Childhood here is not insulated. It is not pastel-colored blankets or softly sung lullabies beneath glowing mobiles. These children are miniature versions of their elders. They are grime-streaked, wind-chapped, barefoot on snow-pocked earth, cloaked in smoke-scented hide. Their faces are scratched. Their fingernails are black with dirt. Yet in them, something stubborn and bright persists. A spark. A pulse of joy that rises out of the frost and hunger like steam. You see it in their spinning games, in their shrieks as they slide down snowbanks on slabs of bark, in the pride that glows on their faces when they are allowed to mimic adult work and are not corrected. They thrive in a world that offers little softness, and yet they find delight. Scholars still argue over the shape of Neanderthal childhood. Were children assigned duties from the moment they could walk? Were they protected, or were they hardened? Was their status fixed or flexible? These questions clutter academic texts and peer-reviewed papers. But what you see here, with your own eyes, renders those debates irrelevant. The answer is yes. There was play. True, unfiltered, spontaneous play. A small group gathers near the hearth, their hands black with soot, their breath rising in tiny bursts. One of the older children picks up a charred stick and begins to drag it through the ash, sketching something with surprising speed and intent. 3 vertical lines. A central dot. A looping curve beneath. The others gather around, nodding solemnly as if they understand the meaning without question. You try to interpret it. A path? A creature? A set of marks for counting? You cannot tell. But they can. To them, it is message, image, maybe even joke. The language of children, direct and decipherable only to them. Later, a girl approaches and places something in your hand. It is small, carved from bone, smoothed by repeated handling, roughly the shape of a horn or curled tusk. You assume it is a tool, crude and unfinished. But she twirls it playfully between her fingers. Passes it to a younger boy who shoves it into his mouth, laughing as he chews. You understand then. It is not for use. It is for delight. It is a toy. Suddenly, you begin to notice them everywhere. Odd, purposeless objects scattered along the edges of camp. Stones worn smooth from fingers. Bits of horn shaped vaguely into animals. Bundles of sticks bound with sinew in meaningless but deliberate form. Not blades. Not hunting tools. Just objects meant to be held, tossed, fiddled with, passed between small hands in idle joy. Play, it seems, may be one of the oldest things we share. It predates plows and pottery. It predates cities and script. And here, in this frozen place, it lives still, One game involves balancing stones on long, narrow branches and knocking them off with smaller stones. The collapse of the stack is followed by peals of laughter and immediate rebuilding. Another game is pure chaos, snowball fights that grow with shrieks and joyful chaos. You catch one full in the ribs, launched with surprising skill. As you double over, groaning more from shock than pain, the children erupt in wild laughter. Not cruel. Just unfiltered, honest amusement. There is no mocking. Only delight in surprise. But not every moment is light. Life here is not gentle, even for the young. You watch as one child slips, his foot catching on hidden ice beneath a thin layer of snow. He falls hard, his knee tearing against a shard of flint. The scream is immediate, sharp enough to silence the camp. An older woman rushes to him without pause, sweeping him into her arms. She presses a hide against the bleeding knee, pulls him close, and begins to hum. It is not a lullaby. Not quite. Just a low sound, steady and deep, a vibration more than a melody. A rhythm meant to comfort. To ground. You feel a strange twist in your chest. You have seen this before. In supermarkets. On city sidewalks. In bedrooms with night lights. A cry. A hum. A hand that holds. A promise that the pain will pass, and then comes the lesson. Later, you see the injured child sitting beside an elder, a man whose hair is ashy with age. He does not speak. He does not rush. He places a stick in the child's hand and gently moves it against the edge of a shell. Once. Twice. Over and over. He does not explain. He demonstrates. Then he guides the boy's hand, slow and careful, until the stick begins to form a point. This is teaching. Silent. Repetitive. Patient. Academics wonder how Neanderthals passed on knowledge. Without classrooms, without blackboards, without written language. But here, the method is obvious. They teach with hands. With presence. With time, you notice how the children move through the group. They belong to no one and to everyone. They are not tethered to one adult, not shadowed by a single protector. But they are always watched. Always noticed. A toddler stumbles too close to the fire, and a man, not his father, not his uncle, reaches out and gently pulls him back. No words. No scolding. Just a gesture. A reflex born of communal care. This is not the nuclear family. This is something broader. A latticework of shared responsibility. Everyone watches. Everyone guards. Everyone raises, despite the ever-present dangers, the beasts that roam the forest, the cold that bites deep, the endless need for food. These children thrive. They do not merely endure. They grow. They bloom. By the age of 6, they help strip sinew from bones. By 8, they carry kindling. By 10, they are testing the weight of spears and asking questions in silent glances. Childhood here is short. But it is full. One night, they invite you into a circle formed just beyond the light of the fire. You sit among them, knees tucked, breath held. An elder begins to grunt in a rhythm, shaping his hands as he speaks. The children mirror him. His fingers loop through the air. Their eyes are wide. They follow his movements with their own, their bodies swaying with the rhythm of the tale. A sudden gesture sends one child gasping, laughter erupting seconds later. The others join in, not with confusion, but with knowing. You do not understand the details. But you recognize the moment. It is a story, a tale without grammar or sentence structure. Told in fragments of sound. In movement. In shared attention. Scholars still argue whether Neanderthals could pass stories between generations. Whether they had myths, fables, legends. Whether memory could live without script. But you are here. You are witnessing it. And the message is unmistakable. Once, there was a bear. Someone chased it. Someone lived. It does not matter if the tale is simple. It does not matter if it lacks grandeur. What matters is that it is remembered. That it moves. That it lands. That is what storytelling is. Not decoration. Continuity. A thread that refuses to break. You watch the children pick up that thread and carry it in their games, in their mimicry, in their songs made of clicks and hums, in their tiny carved tokens passed from hand to hand. They are not waiting to become part of the world. They already are. They are its future and its present. They are its breath, and it dawns on you, slow and quiet, as you watch them curl into each other at the edge of sleep, the firelight painting flickers of gold on their skin. The true center of this camp is not the fire, it is them, the children, because everything, the strength, the labor, the shelter, the protection, the flame, all of it exists for them, not only to survive, but to carry forward, to receive, to become, to inherit. You've grown used to the rhythm of the camp. The chorus of waking groans that ripple through sleeping firs. The soft, steady scraping of ash being nudged aside to uncover smoldering embers. The low, gravel-rough mutters exchanged between bodies not yet fully awake. These morning rituals have become familiar. Each one a note in the music of survival, predictable and grounding in their repetition. But today, something is different. The rhythm has changed, they are digging, but not in the usual way. This is not the frantic clawing through snow to carve out shelter before nightfall, nor the practical clearing of frozen earth to preserve fresh meat in the cold. This is slower. More focused. Just beyond the edge of the camp, away from the scattered blades of flint and the bundles of fur where they sleep, a small group of Neanderthals crouch close to the ground. Their hands move with quiet persistence. They scrape and press with flat stones and bones polished smooth by years of use. The soil resists them, frozen in thick layers, but they do not rush. They dig steadily. Patiently. The hollow they create is shallow, oval in shape, and unusually smooth around the edges, as if shaped not by necessity but by care. This is not a cache for meat, this is not a fire pit, this is a grave. Nearby, wrapped in thick folds of mammoth hide, lies a still shape. You recognize her immediately. An older woman, bent with age, her movements always measured, her gait marked by a limp. You remember her near the fire, always seated on the same patch of fur, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes deep with wind and wisdom. Her joints had moved like brittle wood, but her spirit had not faded. Not long ago, you had seen her laugh. A child had stumbled, spilled snow onto her lap, and she had shaken with amusement, her smile blooming briefly like warmth in the cold. That moment lingers now, suspended in memory. Now, her face is hidden, her body is quiet, she is gone. Among historians, the debate continues. Did Neanderthals bury their dead with intention? With ceremony? With love? Some graves seem to suggest care, bones sprinkled with red ochre, tools placed near limbs, bodies arranged as if sleeping. Others appear careless, bones scattered as if the body had been pushed aside to make space for the living. Some argue instinct. Others see ritual, but this, what you are witnessing now, tells a different story. You watch as they lift her. Slowly. Deliberately. No one speaks, but every movement says something. She is not dropped into the grave. She is lowered, her body guided as though still aware. Still sacred. One of them, a man with deep lines across his forehead, kneels to place a carved bone beside her shoulder. Another steps forward and presses a feather, long, pale, maybe from a bird hunted seasons ago, against her chest. No one utters a word. No chant rises. But a sound begins. A low, steady hum. It comes from the chest, deep and vibrating, not loud enough to be a song, not structured enough to be melody, but it travels through them like breath. It spreads from one body to the next until it dissolves back into silence. Snow begins to fall. First in delicate flurries, then in slow, steady flakes that thicken the air. Still, no one moves. They remain crouched in a loose, uneven circle around the grave, their backs hunched, their hands resting on thighs or pressed together. The last handfuls of soil are placed gently, pressed flat by palm and stone, until the mound is even, until the hide that wrapped her is fully hidden beneath the earth. That evening, you sit with them near the fire. The flames burn low, dulled and heavy, their glow sluggish against the stone walls. The silence stretches. It does not feel empty. It feels full. Dense. A kind of silence that hums just beneath the surface. No one mentions her name. No one speaks of her absence. But it is everywhere. In the gap beside the fire where her fur had always been. In the way no one sits too close to the spot she once claimed. In the glances exchanged across the coals, brief and uncertain. She remains present, held in the shape the group has become without her. Later, as the fire settles into embers and most of the camp curls into sleep, you see one of the children rise quietly and move toward the grave. His steps are slow, deliberate. In his hands, he carries something small. Not meat. Not tool. A rock. Smooth and dark, likely meaningless to an outsider. He kneels, places it gently on the mound, then stands and walks back into the night without a word. You feel the weight of the gesture in your chest. Not heavy like sorrow, but heavy like truth. You want to cry. But you don't. Because here, grief is not loud. It does not explode. It gathers, instead, like snow collecting on branches, quiet and slow. You've begun to notice the ways in which they remember. Even before today, the clues had been there. Certain corners of the camp are stepped around, never touched, as if they carry memory. Some older Neanderthals wear objects around their necks or tucked into hide belts, bones rubbed smooth from constant handling, scraps of aged leather, pieces of horn carved long ago. Not trophies. Not tools. Something else. Memory made tangible. Remembrance here is not a performance. It does not cry out to be witnessed. It lingers in objects and in movement. In the weight of presence and the silence of loss. Later that night, drawn by something quiet inside you, you step away from the warmth and walk to the burial site beneath the sky. The moon glows soft and pale, casting blue across the snow. The grave is still visible. The ground around it is darker, disturbed. You kneel beside it. Brush snow from the surface. There, faint but certain, you see traces of red. A smear of ochre. Deliberate. Around the edges, a border of stones. Not many. But not random either. Placed. A line. A shape. A kind of frame. Why do this? To mark the place, to protect the dead, to keep memory from fading. Historians offer their theories. Some lean toward instinct. Others believe in ritual. Some suggest superstition or belief in the unseen. But as you sit here, your breath catching in the stillness, you see it for what it is. This was done with care. This was meant. One theory, still on the fringes, dares to suggest that Neanderthals believed in something after death. That the objects placed with the body were not just symbols of love, but tools for a continued journey. A blade for hunting. A charm for safety. Food for a hunger yet to come. You wonder. Did they fear what came after? Did they imagine another fire in another world, past the cold and the snow? Did they say goodbye not with words but with silence sent into the wind, where the spirits might hear? You will not know. There are no answers here. Not today. Not in this place, but hours later, as most of the group sleeps and the fire flickers low, you glance again toward the grave. And then you see something that stills your breath. A young man sits alone beside it. His back is curved, his knees drawn in. He has a stick, charred at one end, and he is drawing in the ash. You see a large circle. Then another, smaller one inside it. A single line connects them. You do not ask what it means. He does not look up or speak. He stares at the image for a while, then wipes it away with the palm of his hand, but the meaning lingers. After that, your eyes begin to catch things you hadn't noticed before. Marks on the cave walls, shallow but precise. Tiny grooves cut into bones, always the same depth, always repeated. Notches carved into fragments of antler. They appear in places where people sit. Where they wait. Where they might have once thought. Or remembered, or spoken to no one but themselves. Maybe these marks are offerings. Maybe they are names. Maybe they are pieces of prayers that needed no language. Or maybe they are simple declarations meant only for the hand that made them. Maybe they mean, I was here, and perhaps that is what a grave truly is, not a wall to separate, a doorway to step through, not the last sentence, a breath between pages, not the end, only the pause before the story continues. You walk back to the fire. The others sit close, wrapped in silence and fur. Snow drifts across the stones, whispering as it lands. Every breath is muted, folded into the quiet, and now, you understand something more clearly than before. They do not bury the dead to let them go, they bury them to keep them near, to carry them forward, to remember. The thaw arrives slowly, inching forward like a memory returning from somewhere deep beneath the skin of the world. You do not see it at first. It begins almost imperceptibly. A faint, rhythmic drip echoing from the stone lip above the cave entrance. A subtle slump in the snowbanks, as though they have grown weary of their own weight. A change in the sound beneath your feet, the crunch of frost giving way to a softer, wetter press. Then, one morning, you step out and feel it. Something has shifted. The snow at the cave mouth has melted away, revealing patches of exposed ground that squelch and pull at your feet. The earth is dark, saturated, alive with moisture. The air is heavier now. Thick with the pungent scent of damp pine and thawed moss, wild and raw. And beneath those forest smells, there is something else. Something subtle, but growing. Something stirring. The Neanderthals are uneasy, you sense it before they speak. Their bodies speak first. Their steps grow more cautious. Their eyes lift more frequently toward the treetops. Heads tilt at sounds too faint for you to register. Instinct pulls their muscles taut. Even the air seems to hold more tension. Every gust that snakes through the branches feels like a message, carried on currents that speak of change. The forest sings in a different key now. New bird calls echo. Leaves whisper in accents that were not here before. Something in the very rhythm of the land has shifted, and within that unfamiliar symphony, one note is clearer than the rest. You, or rather, your kind, Homo sapiens, they have come. At first, it is only suggestion. Traces possibilities. A narrow trail of footprints pressed deep into the riverbank mud. The shape is unmistakable. Longer. Narrower. The stride uneven but quick. Not like the prints around your fire. Then, a flake of bone, coiled into a perfect spiral, delicate and fine. Too delicate. Too symmetrical. Not made by Neanderthal hands. Later, across the wide valley, just as dusk lowers its veil, you see it. A line of smoke rising against the blue-gray horizon. Thin. Controlled. It rises faster, brighter, less dense than the smoke you know. Its color is strange. Its scent is alien. The ash, when you find it days later, is fine like dust. This is a different fire. And suddenly, the quiet that has shaped your days feels thinner. Brittle. Crowded. You are not alone anymore. Historians still argue about what happened next. About the moment the two species met. Some say it was war. Others suggest cautious coexistence, an exchange of tools and ideas. Some imagine silence and distance, uneasy sharing of space. But what you see, what unfolds in front of you, feels more complex. Not war. Not peace. Not entirely fear, and not entirely welcome. It is something tangled. Something raw and uncertain. The Neanderthals begin to change. Not in speech. Not in tools. But in manner. In posture. In small things that shift the atmosphere. One man, once cheerful and loud in the morning light, begins walking a circle around the perimeter of camp each day, scanning, sniffing, pausing often. A woman who once pressed food into children's hands now hides scraps beneath stones. The elder who once showed you how to tease flame from fungus no longer meets your gaze. His shoulders hunch. His voice fades. There is a dullness spreading. The current that once flowed easily between bodies has thinned. You feel it too. Not with your eyes, but in your spine. Change is not coming. It is already here. But this change does not arrive with a crash. It seeps in. Quiet and tireless. Like water working its way into stone. A slow carving. A gradual hollowing. Hunting grows harder. Familiar paths lead nowhere. The hooves of mammoth and reindeer print new trails, heading north. The great herds seem restless, tugged by something you cannot follow. Mammoths lumber toward colder winds. Reindeer vanish. Food becomes an echo. The wolves, once distant shadows, draw closer. Their eyes gleam beyond the tree line. They know. They can smell it. The weakening. The unraveling, and then, you find something, near the valley's edge, half buried in thawed soil, glinting in early sunlight. A tool. A weapon. Slender. Gleaming. Bone white. Razor sharp. It looks like ivory, but its shape is wrong. Too fine. Too deliberate. A point carved not for blunt power, but for exactness. Its balance is strange. Its elegance unnerving. It was made by hands like yours. But not by anyone you know. The Neanderthals gather around it. Silence follows. One lifts it, turns it in his palm. Another grunts, low and sharp. A warning. A fear. No one smiles. Then, quietly, they place it in the ash of last night's fire. Press it down. Cover it with soot and ember. As if that might erase it, but it cannot be erased. You know what it means. It is not just a weapon. It is a message. It is progress. And it is terrifying. Because Homo sapiens brought more than points and blades. They brought speed. They brought hunger. They brought tools that flew farther, hit harder. Clothes sewn with needle and care, stitched to the skin. Shelters built in hours, not days. Language that twisted and layered, with tone and inflection and speed. And they brought something more dangerous than all of that. They brought numbers. The Neanderthals live in small knots of memory and kin. Bands shaped by song and fire. But sapiens move like rivers in flood. Their camps swell. Their shadows stretch. Their footprints multiply. Where one fire was, now there are 5. Their tools spread. Their voices rise, and the Neanderthals respond. They lower their fires. They speak less. They watch the trees. They vanish when strangers come. They stop singing. They sleep with their backs to the walls. They hold their tools like shields. You begin to see something vanishing. Not quickly, but inevitably. Like warmth leaving water, historians offer explanations. Theories. Was it the ice? Was it your species? Was it blending? Was it illness? Perhaps it was all of them. You see hints of each. The weather grows wild. One week brings hail. The next, mud so thick it swallows feet. Food becomes a puzzle. The old ones lose weight. Their limbs wobble. Their skin sinks, and then, something sharper than cold, one of the younger women is gone, no warning. No sign. She painted spirals on her skin with ochre. She laughed at your hair when it stuck up with grease. She winked when others frowned. She is not here anymore. You do not know what happened. Did she leave? Was she taken? Did she choose it? You do not know which thought cuts deeper. Then, it comes. The moment you feared. The moment you hoped would never form. You are out hunting. You move with a group, spaced like threads in a net. The sky is flat with cloud. The snow beneath you is soft, dampened by melt. You stumble on a kill. Fresh. Blood still steaming. Meat barely torn. 5 figures crouch. They rise. They are tall. Slim. Wrapped in hide sewn with care and color. Their faces are unreadable. Their eyes are quick, measuring. Cold and sharp. They do not speak. Neither do you. The silence holds. Brittle. Waiting. Then one of them steps forward. He tosses something at your feet. It lands in the snow. A pendant. Shell. Polished smooth. A small hole through the top. A thread of sinew, an offering, a warning. You never learn. No one speaks. Your group steps back. Slow. Measured. You do not turn your back. No one raises a weapon. The message is already clear. They are here, and they will not be leaving. That night, the fire is dim. No one feeds it. No stories are told. No songs hummed. The silence is not fear. And not mourning either. Something else. A stillness. A wait. A knowing. This world is slipping from their grip. The elder sits beside the fire. He stares into the flames. He does not speak. He does not eat. He remains that way through the dark. At dawn, he is gone. No body. No cry. Just gone. His blade is missing. So is a strip of hide. He walked into the trees, alone. He could not stay to watch, and no one stops him, because here is the truth no one carves in stone. There is no final moment, no single ending. No last breath of a people. No cry across the sky. No fire that marks the end. It fades, in broken trails. In smaller circles around smaller fires. In silence where songs used to live. In faces that grow fewer. In footsteps that go untracked, and one day, they are gone, or nearly gone. Because on a night when the cold has returned, when the fire burns soft and low, a child walks toward you, the youngest. He holds something in both hands. A stone. Carved. Clumsy. Rough, but it has a shape, a mammoth. You see it, the curve. The tusks. The weight. All suggested. Imperfect, but there, not for hunting. Not for play, a memory. The others gather. Quietly. They sit close. You all draw near the fire. Hands hover near warmth. No one speaks, and then you feel it. They are not vanished. They did not disappear. They shifted. They moved. They were carried, into others, into you, in your skin. In your bones. In the fire that lives behind your eyes when you look up at the stars and ask where you came from. The Neanderthals did not end, they became. You wake to a softer wind, it moves gently across your skin, cool but no longer cruel, brushing against your cheeks with the tenderness of something newly born. Not the cutting, bitter gusts that tore through the trees and stung your eyes. Not the relentless whip of frozen air that cracked lips and hollowed breath. This wind carries a different note. A hush of warmth barely formed. A suggestion of moisture held like a secret in its folds. The scent of moss awakening beneath thawed soil. Pine needles shifting against bark. Life, once hidden, begins to exhale again, the air smells changed. Less of smoke and char, less of fat cooked over open flame. The sharp tang of winter has dulled. In its place, something living has begun to stir. Thawing ground. Wet leaves. A scent of green rising faintly, as though the land itself is inhaling after a long sleep. Behind you, the cave lies still, there is no sound. No rustle of movement. No guttural breathing echoing from the stone walls. The ashes in the fire pit have gone pale, sifted into soft, feathered patterns that resemble frost clinging to forgotten windows. The furs are folded, or gone. The heat has vanished. The heart of the place has gone quiet, they have left, the companions you once woke beside. The ones whose limbs curled toward heat in the dark. The ones who shared hunger and fire, silence and wind. They are no longer here. You see them now. Barely. Pale shapes drifting through the trees. Not running. Not frightened. Not urgent. They move like morning mist uncoiling through the trunks. Faint and slow. Their steps leave almost no mark. They are like memory now. Like the echo of something once whole, and in your chest, the feeling sharpens, this might be the last time you see them. But before you step forward, before you choose a direction, before you let your legs carry you into the rhythm of whatever comes next, something at your feet stops you. A flicker. A ripple of light in a puddle of meltwater just beside your boots. You look down, you lean closer, and for the briefest moment, you see yourself, not clearly. The surface quivers with each breeze, trembles with sunlight. But still, you can make out your own eyes staring back. Your face. Familiar, but not quite the same. Worn now. Smudged with soot. Streaked with dirt and memory. Lined with days lived under raw sky and nights pressed close to stone, the change is not only in the skin, it lives in the gaze. Behind your reflection, there is something new. A shift. A knowing. You are no longer just someone passing through. Not simply a visitor walking between worlds. You are no longer a collector of moments meant to be stored away in distant journals, something in you has sunk roots into this place. You are not just among them, you are, in part, one of them, and perhaps not only in spirit. Perhaps something deeper. Perhaps even in blood, your own time speaks of this. The science of genetics has whispered it loud enough for the world to hear. That in the cells of modern humans, particularly those descended from outside of Africa, there remain fragments. Threads of code. Remnants. Up to 2%. They say. Hidden but real. Neanderthal DNA folded into the double helix. Not lost. Not erased. Carried forward. Surviving. It is strange to think that the way your skin darkens in the sun, or your immune system reacts to illness, or how your hair curls or lies flat, these details may not be random. They may be echoes. Traits carried forward by time, by birth, by breath, not guesses. Not myths, whispers written in bone, bits of them are in you, silent. Patient. Waiting. Historians and scientists debate the origin of that mingling. Was it consent? Was it conquest? Did it grow from trust, or was it born in fear? Were there fires shared willingly, or stolen nights shaped by desperation? No one truly knows, but the result is not in question. The truth is carved into you, etched like flint strokes into wet clay before it dried. Preserved in the soft architecture of who you are, they were not strangers, they were family, your cousins, and, in a way that is quiet and literal and deep, your ancestors. You think of them now, the girl who painted ochre in spirals down her arms, laughing at the cold, teasing your awkwardness. The elder whose eyes had gone pale with time, who never spoke, yet somehow conveyed the whole language of the world in a tilt of his head. The boy who clutched his carved mammoth as if it were the very heart of the sky. Where did they go? Maybe they vanished into the wild places, into forests and ridges no one has walked since. Maybe they found others, folded their lives into new groups, lived out quiet days in overhangs that have long since crumbled. Maybe they died alone, or in pairs, or in circles, beneath stars that forgot their names, or maybe they never left at all. Maybe their children's children still move among you. In the hum of subway crowds. In the weary faces at airport terminals. In the quiet smiles exchanged in grocery lines. People who do not know, but carry the inheritance anyway. You would not recognize them. The world now is fast. Too fast. Cities buzz and blink. Voices filter through machines. Screens glow with urgency. Rockets pierce the upper skies. The pace is relentless. There is little time to remember, and yet, something ancient remains. It hums beneath the glass and steel. It pulses behind every moment of care. You see it in how people mourn their dead. In how they cradle one another in silence. In how they gather near light when the night grows long. They once made fire, now we build warmth with radiators and bulbs, but the instinct is unchanged. They never raised great stone monuments to last forever. You are their monument, and though you carry them with you, though your very blood holds their breath, something in you still aches. Still grieves. You walk beneath a grove of tall pines. The needles shift above you. The soil is soft beneath your boots. The air smells full. Heavy with decay, and with life pushing through the decay. You remember the way snow fell. The hiss of flint against antler. The quiet grunts exchanged at dusk. You remember their hands. That world is gone now. The silence that surrounds you is not waiting. It is absence. It is the space where they once stood, still. Something lingers. You have learned something here that will never appear in textbooks. Something that cannot be graphed or photographed or placed in glass behind museum walls. Survival is not just strength. It is not measured in tools, or brain volume, or complexity of speech. It is not defined by art or fire or the speed of migration. It is measured in connection. They did not vanish because they were lesser. They vanished because the world shifted, and the ground beneath their feet moved too quickly. They could not run fast enough to stay within it. But they did not disappear. They endure in you, in the flex of your hand. In the weight of your skeleton. In the reflex that makes you glance up when you hear something move in the dark. They endure in the lullabies you sing alone. You reach down. There, in the dirt, lies a shard of flint. You pick it up. It fits your palm perfectly. Its shape is familiar, as though it remembers you. You could turn it into something. A scraper. A knife. A symbol of your skill, but you do not. You turn it over once, twice, then, gently, you return it to the ground, as though it matters. As though the act itself is enough. You are not discarding it. You are honoring it, and in that moment, something settles behind your ribs. They were never broken versions of you. You are the divergence. They belong to their world. We are the ones who keep building roads over sacred earth. We are the ones who forget the shape of old paths. Who live too fast to hear what still speaks through stone and water and smoke. But if you are still, if you are quiet, if you stop, if you wait, if you breathe deeply enough, you will hear them. You will always hear them. It is morning, once again, but this time, the world around you is different. There is no cave wall at your back, no stone surface cradling your sleep. No frostbitten wind slicing across your cheeks like a blade. No heavy breath beside yours in the half-light, rising and falling in rhythm with your own. No body curled in furs, close enough to share warmth. No flicker of orange casting shadows on rock. No soft, graveled murmurs of waking Neanderthals stirring near the fire. Only you now. Only your own footsteps, slow and deliberate, pressing into the damp earth as you move, one pace at a time, through a forest that once rang with voices deeper than yours, and footsteps heavier. The silence is closer now. Not empty. Not lifeless. Birds still cry out from branches above. The wind still moves through the trees, bending them gently, like a hand brushing hair from a brow. Squirrels chatter. Leaves rustle. Life, in its many forms, continues. But there is an absence folded into that life, a presence that should be here but is not. You feel it in your bones, in the hollow between each heartbeat. You know now who once walked beside you. And that knowing makes every sound more distant. Every moment heavier. Still, your thoughts do not stay rooted in the ground. They wander. They reach into the unseen. Your mind begins to drift. You wonder, what if they had not disappeared? What if they had remained? What if they had not folded quietly into your lineage like songs hidden between the verses of new melodies? What if they had not vanished, becoming indistinct among us, fading like colors washed by rain, their names forgotten but their traces still flowing in our blood? What if history had followed another path? A split in the road, and they had taken the lead. What if they had won? Historians are drawn to such questions. They love the threads of time unraveled and rewoven into alternate patterns. Speculation woven with facts. And you too are drawn to this kind of wondering. A quiet fascination. This particular question lingers longer than most. It shadows you, slips beneath your thoughts, like smoke curling beneath a closed door. It clings to you, follows you even when your eyes are open. It returns at night, keeping you awake long after the fire has turned to ash, so you let yourself imagine a world in which Neanderthals did not disappear. A world where they remained, not preserved behind glass or reduced to skulls in textbook diagrams. Not frozen in exhibits. Not sealed in soil. But alive. Present. Breathing and speaking and growing. Walking beside us as neighbors. As co-workers. As poets. As elders. As friends. As people. Would the world look the same? You do not think so, because for all their power and resilience, for all the quiet depth in their eyes, Neanderthals did not build toward conquest. They were not drawn to monuments or walls. They did not organize themselves in ways that required cities or flags or borders. They left behind no sprawling empires, no roads that cleaved mountains. They built no temples, raised no statues to kings. There are no pyramids etched with their names. No lost ships beneath coral. No broken mosaics mapping conquests. They did not raise their eyes to distant stars in ambition, they looked inward. To each other, their world was made of closeness. Of presence. Of the kind of memory passed hand to hand, from mother to child, from elder to youth, not written in symbols but remembered in gesture and tone. Their lives circled around firelight, around the steady rhythm of seasons. Their knowledge was not stored in buildings or buried in scrolls. It lived in the body. In the breath. In the gaze held a little longer when someone grieved. Imagine, just for a moment, if that had been the path we chose. What kind of world would this be now? Would there be asphalt and traffic lights? Would our nights glow with satellite signals and automated lights? Would our economies hinge on numbers that blink across screens? Would wars be fought over lines drawn on paper? Would weather shift under our own doing? Or would we have stayed closer to the earth? Would we have walked with gentler feet, hunted only when hunger required it, taken only what we needed and no more? Would we have measured our days in sunlight and moonrise, in footsteps and quiet growth? Would we have understood patience not as discipline, but as a natural state? Some imagine further still. They picture a future built not from conquest, but from continuation. Not from hunger, but from harmony. A Neanderthal-shaped world might have still created tools, still painted, still wondered. But it would have done so differently. Not in haste. Not in excess. In rhythm. In cycles. In deliberate stillness. A culture measured not in breakthroughs, but in balance, art would still exist. But instead of galleries, it would live on stone walls in caves. Each generation adding new layers. Paints made from earth and ash, touched and retouched, again and again. Music would survive, but it would be shared between breaths. Sung in tones meant only for the firelight, passed in lullabies that needed no language. Love would still exist. But it would not be written into vows or contracts. It would be the quiet act of sharing food. The silent offer of warmth. The look that says, I will stay. Yes, something would be lost: speed. Innovation. Perhaps entire networks and systems, but would we miss them? Would we mourn the loss of instant messages in exchange for long conversations spoken slowly under trees? Would we regret the absence of high-speed travel if our feet knew every stone on the path home? Would we ache for skyscrapers if the stars were closer through open branches? You do not know. You kneel now. The dirt is soft beneath your knees, rich with scent and time. Beneath a tree twisted by age, you let your finger drag through the soil. A circle. Then another. Then a long, patient line between them. A gesture. A memory. A shape that means nothing. Or everything. Some ancient hand might have made this same mark once. Not to communicate. Not to impress. But because something inside said to do it. In this imagined world, there are no great cities, no armies. No declarations, only people. Small groups. Moving through forested places, living where the land allows, remembering not with books, but with stones and stories and songs. It would have been smaller, but perhaps it would have been enough. Because Neanderthals were not missing anything, they were not broken. They were not lacking. They did not hunger for more than what could be touched or shared. Their world was rich without surplus. Full without expansion. What they had, they held. That may be the deepest loss, that in choosing the path we walk today, in choosing more, in choosing faster, we lost the quiet road. The one marked by slow footsteps and the care of hands held too long. The one where no one was forgotten. Where grief was not buried in silence but placed gently among the living. You exhale, you rise slowly, brushing your hands free of earth, because the what if is only that. A shadow. A door that does not open outward, but inward. A window, not to possibility, but to reflection. The Neanderthals are gone, you remained, and still, you do not walk alone, they move with you. In the structure of your genes. In the instincts you cannot name. In the way you lean toward others in the dark. In the stillness you crave without knowing why. In the way you kneel beside a grave. In the way you sit by a fire and say nothing, and yet everything is understood, every longing to belong, every ache for silence, every gesture that says, I am here, it all remains, so you keep walking, not with sorrow, not with regret, but with something deeper, something shaped like reverence. What a world it might have been, what a world we almost had. The forest has grown still, not in the taut, breath-held quiet that settles just before a storm. Not the sharp, electrified hush that makes fur bristle and birds take flight. Not that charged stillness where everything seems to hold its breath in anticipation. This stillness is something else entirely. It is slower. Deeper. It does not rise. It settles. It is not a pause before action. It is the sigh that follows. A soft and final exhale. The sound of something that has done what it came to do. Something that has spoken its last word and now steps gently into the silence it leaves behind. You walk beneath towering trees, their trunks dark with dew, their bark shining with early light. Every branch above you glistens. Mist lingers low across the roots and moss, clinging to fern and fallen stone. Your breath does not rise in clouds anymore. The air is warmer now. It smells of damp earth and old growth. The scent is rich, deep, patient. Your footsteps no longer crunch on frost or break through snow. Instead, they move across a soft, dark floor made of decaying leaves, damp soil, and ancient memory. Each step lands without resistance. The ground does not push back. The trees do not observe. They do not judge. They only allow. They only bear witness. Even the birds have changed their tone. They do not shout across the canopy. They sing instead, softly, distantly, like voices calling from another ridge. Another valley, farther away than sound should carry. A lullaby from beyond the hill. Somewhere nearby, you hear the slow drip of water, falling from ledge to ledge, drop by drop, stone to stone. Its rhythm does not change. Its song does not rise. It simply continues. Steady. Old. Timeless. The sound of time, not as a line, but as a circle, the world feels scrubbed clean. Not wiped bare. Not stripped to nothing. But cleared. Like a table swept of dust, like a breath drawn after grief. As though the forest has made room for something to be remembered, not forgotten. As though the land itself knows what once was and now bows its head in quiet respect. You have seen what endings look like, and they are not loud, they do not crack the sky or split the mountains. They do not announce themselves. They do not march in with certainty. The end came slowly. With pauses. With absences. With the dimming of light, not its extinguishing. There was no moment. No flash. No final heartbeat. Only fewer sparks. Fewer songs. Fewer shared glances over flames. A soft unraveling. Stretched across years and lifetimes, until one morning the sun rose and found no one left to greet it. You kneel at the crest of a low hill, your knees sinking into damp moss and loose earth. Around you, the hush is complete. Not empty. Not dead. Sacred. As if the silence itself carries memory. As if the air has thickened with everything that has ever been felt here. Below, the valley lies in soft shadow, touched with pale light. The cave is still there. You see it, dark, familiar, carved into the limestone like a wound. The trail of stones that once led to it winds still through the undergrowth, broken now, scattered in places, worn down by wind and root. But you know it. You remember it. And in your memory, you can almost hear the sounds that filled it once. The hushed laughter. The crack of bone on stone. The slow, sleeping breath of bodies curled together in warmth. The camp is gone, but the life is not. Because it lives in you now. Carried not in objects, not in records, but in the quiet architecture of your being. The ochre that once stained your skin has long since faded. But the shapes it made, the lines it drew across your arms, remain like ghosts just beneath the surface. The hide draped across your shoulders is worn thin, its edges fraying, its warmth weathered by time and use. But it holds. It shelters. And in your hand, you turn a pendant, small, carved, smoothed by use. The one placed into your palm by fingers that did not speak, but understood. A gift given without explanation. It fits in your hand now, perfectly. As if shaped by waiting. The surface feels warm. The grooves know your touch. The memory of being held lingers in its weight. This place did more than leave a mark, it shaped something in you that resists language, something that settles behind the ribs, that hums beneath thought. And as you sit on that hill, watching light spill slowly across the floor of the valley, watching shadows shift and soften, the truth comes to you with quiet clarity. A truth both strange and simple. They never needed monuments, they never needed books or statues or songs carved into stone, they never needed to be remembered in the way we try to remember, because they were never truly gone. You have seen them as they were. Not imagined. Not interpreted. Seen. At their fires. Around their food. In their grief and their comfort. You heard the sounds they made as they worked, half song, half breath. You watched them mourn. You watched them care. You saw how they cradled their dead. You saw how they loved. Not through grand declarations. Not through symbols. Through quiet nearness. Through gifts shared without asking. Through hands that lingered. Through presence held like fire in the dark, you felt their care, in a glance that stayed too long, in the hand that reached for yours when words failed, in the piece of meat shared when there was barely enough. They were not monsters, not myths, not errors of nature, they were people, they were complicated and radiant. They were burdened by struggle and buoyed by hope. They were fierce when needed. Gentle when possible. They were frightened. They were brave. They shaped the world around them not through force, but through touch. Through the creation of tools, yes, but also through the shaping of bonds. Of feelings. Of meaning, and now, as the last smoke clings faintly to the air of your lungs, as the wind moves through the trees like a whisper spoken to no one in particular, one final image rises in your mind. It rises slowly. Settles like dust on a still floor, not a lone Neanderthal. Shoulders slumped, watching the world disappear, but you, trembling slightly, standing in the echo of their path, realizing, perhaps for the first time, that you were never so different. You stand, you walk away, but something in you does not come with you. Something remains. Small. Steady. True. A fragment of you kneels still by the ash where the last fire burned. It does not speak. It does not follow. It only stays. It remembers, because the Neanderthals did not simply vanish, they became part of what it means to be human. They are the quiet voice in every story you carry, they are the presence in every firelit tale, they are the echo in the cave of your own memory. The wind begins to slow, it does not stop, not completely, but it shifts. It softens. It becomes less insistent, less demanding. It moves not to strip away, but to soothe. It brushes your cheek like breath. Like blessing, you lie back now, letting the ground hold you. Your head finds a cradle of moss, or perhaps the remains of fur, still faintly warm from the ghosts of those who once rested here. The softness surprises you. The stillness welcomes you, you are safe, you have walked far. Through ice and hunger. Through memory and ash. You have seen the fires die and the faces fade. But here, now, you are not cold. Not anymore. The forest hums below the surface of your skin. The earth no longer pulls at you. It holds you instead, gently, without demand. The stones have stilled. The branches above move in rhythm with your breath, and your breath moves in rhythm with the trees. There is nothing left to chase, nothing left to prove. No more tracks to follow. No more bones to clean. No more blades to sharpen by firelight. No more names to remember, because they are already etched inside you, where no frost can reach. Let your muscles soften now. Let your spine sink into the soil. Let gravity remind you that you belong to this place, not as a visitor, but as part of it. Let it hold you, not with pressure, but with memory. You have carried stone, you have carried story, you have carried the songs of people long gone, and now, you are allowed to set them down. There are no more questions to ask. No more footsteps to follow. No more fading trails disappearing into the snow, only this, only breath, only rest. The world will keep turning, cities will rise and fall. Machines will hum. Satellites will circle the planet like distant thoughts. But deep below all that, beneath the asphalt and iron, beneath the flashing lights and rushing crowds, the bones will still sleep, the songs will still echo, and the fire, though quiet, will still burn. Let its warmth carry you now. Let it wrap around your ribs like an old lullaby. Let it remind you that you were never truly alone. Sleep now. Let the past rest with you. Sleep easy, sleep deep. They are with you, they always were.